for Kroondal employees at Sibanye-Stillwater's mine in Rustenburg in the northwest. Operations remain suspended at 2 shafts of the mine. This as over 200 mine workers are staging a sit-in underground at the Kwezi shaft from yesterday morning, while last night the night shift was also cancelled at the K6 shaft. Sibanye-Stillwater emphasized that discussions between the company and unions regarding the details of the proposed Kroondal ESOP are ongoing, and the proposal has not yet been implemented because of the acquisition of Anglo Platinum's 50% share in Kroondal's PSA transaction. AMCU's Regional Deputy Chairperson Xolile Ndangal.
We went underground and we were given the mandate, and we gave the feedback to management as to what is the mandate. Then we will take it from there. The meeting that will be held is the one that is going to determine what the answer from the employer regarding the mandate of the working class. Based on the mandate saying they only want their monies, if the employer is willing to resolve this, should adhere to the mandate.
In other news, Vodacom's forensic supervisor, Pinky Vaidhalingam, says a SIM swap was done on Senzo Miyu's phone number a day after he was murdered. Miyu was shot and killed on the 26th of October in 2014 while at Kilukumalo's parental home in Vosloorus on Gauteng's East Rand. Vaidhalingam is testifying at the High Court in Pretoria, where 5 men are on trial for the murder of the Bafana captain.
This certifies that Vodacom has received a subpoena in terms of Section 205 of the Criminal Procedure Act 51 of 1977 from SAPS, with reference number GP Joburg 6605-2024 from Brigadier Geninda on the 9th of May 2024. The subpoena has been submitted for information relating to the SIM swap, which was carried out on the 27th of October 2014.
And lastly, the President of Namibia, Nangolo Mbumba, has congratulated South Africa for holding peaceful elections that saw the governing ANC's majority reduced. The ANC has strong ties with SAPO of Namibia, one of the liberation organizations in southern Africa. As Namibians will also go to the polls later this year, Mbumba says democracy is about building, not destroying a country.
Democracy means every 5 years you must report to the citizens, the owners of the country, and be elected or re-elected or be thrown out of office. We in Namibia, we in the SADC region must congratulate the citizens and the political parties in South Africa for what they have done. They have voted in peace, and that is the most important thing. It does not help that elections come to destroy our countries.
Recapping the top story at 3, KZN Health MEC Nomagugu Simelane says off-duty healthcare workers and healthcare workers from other areas were called in last night to deal with the influx of injured people after a tornado hit Utongati north of Durban. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour for SFM News. I'm Eva Chipa.
And coming up in your sports this hour, SA cyclists banned for 15 years over sexual conduct. CAF World Cup qualifiers to kick off and take centre stage, and Gov recovers to beat Jabeur and reach semi-finals. More details at 3:30.
Get up to 10.75% per annum with an 18-month ABSA dynamic fixed deposit account, which allows you to build your financial future. Plus, you'll earn an additional interest rate if you join ABSA Rewards. Join tens of thousands of South Africans who've already taken advantage of this account's flexibility. Open yours now on our banking app or absa.co.za to maximize returns. Your story matters. ABSA is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The clock is on a downhill towards the world's most prestigious games, with a wide variety of exhilarating action such as aquatics, athletics, gymnastics, boxing, breakdancing, football, and many more. The 6th of June marks 50 days to the Olympics. The world's elite athletes are all eyeing a podium finish. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. Experience the Olympic Games Paris 2024 from Friday 26 July until Sunday 11 August. Live on SABC TV channels and SABC radio stations. SABC Sport is the official broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024. For the love of the
game. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, welcome to you. Good afternoon. And let me put that challenge to you right away. What for you drives the National Pulse today? As always, you can connect right away, 0614 104 107 on WhatsApp voice notes or text, or to call in 086 000 2032. What drives the National Pulse? In the meantime, let me tell you about me, okay? So, today is my birthday, okay? Now, the most common way we celebrate birthdays is by eating cake and maybe a happy birthday message or a call from, friends and family and chummies, right? But if you are lucky, someone then hosts a party in your name with a birthday boy or girl receiving gifts too, lots or little, depending on the size of the party. But should birthdays be more than just that? Well, today I find myself on my birthday reflecting on my role in my life, in the lives of my family, my community, my country. And, that journey all started with my birthday. In that sense, a birthday is the single most important day in your life, isn't it? And the annual birthday that follows that very first birthday is effectively your own annual state of your nation. So, since we own that day, how do we make this day even more significant? Now, I think back to, former President Nelson Mandela and him having this big party with the children of Kunu on his birthday and how that sparked off into an annual act of giving, right? So, what can I do beyond my birthday that can impact greater society? And how can we make our birthdays a more significant day not in my life, in other people's lives? So, this is what I want to do right now. I champion people, right? So how about I champion someone or a cause that's really important to you? So all day today, what I want you to do, you can tag me, right? And let me give out a shout out to a person, this is on my social media platforms, a person or an organization that in your opinion is really worth championing. They're top of the game in whatever they do, but they need a shout out. So if you tag me, I'm going to share it, okay? And then while you're at it, you tell me, how do you use your birthday to impact society or your community far more than just having cake? Because the truth is, bottom line, birthdays are so much more than you having your cake and eating it. I'm Ashraf Garda, and that's my point. Now, what's yours?
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Right, we're certainly going to comment. Please talk about your birthdays. Specifically, I'm interested in how you utilize your birthday to impact other people. I want to know your story. I have my plan, and I'm hoping my plan works, but I certainly want to know from your side as well. And connect with me on the various platforms, but also comment on what I've asked you to do, which is what for you drives the National Pulse today. I think the last day or two, it's been just one-way traffic around the elections and the fallout from that election. So that's completely understandable. I would think it actually continues, doesn't it? Because we're going to talk about to the IEC like right now. Now, the IEC's work effectively, I would think, sort of got done by Sunday night with the pronouncement of this all-important phrase, free and fair. But we also know there's been so much spoken about what's been done and what has not been done in South Africa's election 2024. So let's talk about overall IEC performance and very importantly, those questions that people have been asking, particularly around complaints and allegations and things that really, according to many parties, have not been resolved. So with me is Mr. Masego Sheburi, who's the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer. Very, very important job, certainly. I appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us. You're live on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Good afternoon. So, firstly, overall, what is the IEC's assessment of the IEC's running of South Africa's election 2024?
The assessment of the Commission is that the Commission managed the election as it did in the past in terms of the law and in terms of the standard required. So therefore, on Sunday it was able to conclude that the elections were free and fair. And that is on the back of the Commission having considered all complaints and or objections that were raised with it by Sunday morning.
Okay. Now, you are aware, initially there was lots of praise for the way the IEC handled things, and I haven't been surprised at that because that's what I expect from the IEC. And then as the day prolonged, I'm talking of that day one, the praises turned to, disgruntlement, dissatisfaction, even anger and disappointment amongst many others to say the IEC did not shape up. Too many errors, too many mistakes, queues too long, electronic issues did not work, and that caused huge problems. How do you respond to that?
Indeed, there were electronic issues, but those issues that are electronic in nature are issues that are intended to bring efficiencies to the elections process. They are not legislated things. So even without the electronics, we can still run an election. The second part is that for the first time in this election, it was not possible for voters to apply for a Section 24A. In other words, it was not possible for voters to rock up at the voting station and ask to vote there as if they had been registered there. So we expected that some people will experience that for the first time at voting stations, and those who have not applied by the 17th of May would not have been able to vote at the voting station on whose segment of the voters roll their name does not appear. I suspect those two things aggregated then to form a bad experience among some voting public. We will certainly include those in our review so that in the next election we record improvements.
All right. Let's talk then about some of the, whether I call them complaints or allegations. There were issues all to do with the voting, not so much the longer queues. I think that we've discussed, but the bigger issues about there's been vote fiddling, there's been widespread, there's been widespread fraud, there's been ballot sheets found elsewhere. What do you make of all those things?
Okay, let's repeat in a minute the scheme. We vote in person at a voting station in the presence of party agents and observers and people representing candidates. Those people may raise objections in the voting process. After we close the voting stations, we count in their presence again. They can again raise objections. At the end of the count, we produce result slips. They can sign those result slips. They can take images of those result slips. And they have access to our result system. In other words, an added layer of guarantee that the station that the votes tally that they recorded at the voting station end up in the result system. They are the votes tally that are in the result system. So we have those layers of transparency to enable stakeholders to have a sight of the results until they are finalized. And because we accept that mistakes creep in a logistic undertaking akin to an election, contestants have until 9 o'clock on Friday to record their objections so that we could consider those before we declare the results. Mindful of that, the Commission on Saturday gave a blanket extension to all contestants to say we accept that by 2100 hours, not all results have been finalized. To the extent that you want to raise an objection, you still have the rest of Saturday to do so because the result had likely been finalized on that day. So contestants and parties had an opportunity to raise objections, and those foundational documents, we didn't have to go dig up for them. We provided them. They are on our computer system. They are on our website. We also provide APN to electoral contestants to make it easy for them to find those mistakes and to bring it to the Commission for the Commission to correct before it declares the result. The fact that people had access to results, it's not a mistake. It is designed as a way of transparency so that when the Commission announces, everybody's happy.
Right. Now, we are aware of that huge number of parties that came together and they put together a legal challenge, right? I think about 18 parties or so put together a challenge to the IEC through lawyers and effectively listing a series of grievances. But central to that, they were that important, they'd asked the IEC to delay the announcing of the final results, at least for a few days longer. Why was that not done unless all the grievances have been addressed directly to those parties?
all the parties, everyone who took the pain to raise an objection with the commission would have received a reason of what the commission did with their objection. Where they agreed with the objection, the commission would have told them the steps that were going to be taken. Where the commission rejected those objections, the commission would have informed the person of the reasons for the rejection. At the point when the commission announced the results, there were no outstanding matters to be dealt with, so the commission had no basis on which to delay the announcement of the results.
Okay, so I'm hearing conflicting stories. Certainly the MK spokesperson said, as of yesterday, he said they have not received a response to anything. I mean, that's just them in particular. I'm not too sure about the others, right? So are you saying that everybody received a response, or whoever complained formally? Yeah.
Everybody who lodged an objection, either before 2100 hours on Friday or during the course of the day on Saturday, or even on Sunday morning, they have received written responses.
All right. Now, the next thing is they may have received a response, but the response may not be favorable. It could just be we've acknowledged a response, meaning has the actual issue that they've got been resolved?
The point I'm making, Ashraf, is that in the responses, people would have received a response in two ways. One, the commission agrees with the points that you've raised, and for that reason, it will order one of two things. One, that a recount be conducted at the voting station, and a number of such recounts have been ordered. Two, that the commission will adjust the results in the result system because it has come to a conclusion that the mathematics of the results there are incorrect. Or it will reject that objection because it has not been well grounded, it has not been founded, or that the objective reality in the results is that the results are correct. Because some of the objections are people who say the results do not accord to my campaign. I ran a very good campaign, therefore I am worth more votes than you've captured from me.
All right. Now, amongst some of the key, and I know there were recounts taken, and as you say, they were not materially different, right? But amongst the key allegations were issues of voter fraud and vote rigging in the Western Cape in particular. I noticed there were no recounts from that region.
If there were some recounts orders. There were recounts that happened in the Western Cape on Saturday evening, arising from the objections that were raised.
Okay, but again, not materially different, right? So here's the thing: you've either recounted or you've said we've looked at your issue, your complaint, and we don't think there's a case for it. Is the case now closed, or they still have further recourse even after the free and fair pronouncement?
Okay, there's electoral justice at three layers. The administration runs the election. The election are declared free and fair by the commission having considered all objections. And once the commission has made an objection, all the other residual issues that need to be raised, if people are not happy with the decision of the commission, they may within 3 days approach the electoral court and make out a case for the reversal of certain results or for the annulment.
And very quickly, we got 30 seconds. Has that happened at all?
As I speak to you, I am not aware of any application to the electoral court or any court.
Okay, and let's assume there is an objection that gets taken to the electoral court. Would anything actually change the result of the election? You've got like 30 seconds to answer that.
We do not think so, because when the commission announced the result, it was happy that the result represent the will of the people freely expressed.
Okay. And the complaint, they say, why could we not wait? It smacks of arrogance that the IEC could not accede to a request from many parties to at least wait for a few days longer. Why did it have to be on Sunday evening with the announcement of free and fair?
You have to recall, Ashraf, the parties since Wednesday said they have evidence of wrongdoing. But by the time that the commission had decided that they are declaring the result, all the evidence was evaluated, or there was none forthcoming. So there was no reason why the commission ought to have held. Yes. And yet, at the time Sunday, as the result announcement from the first day when we started, we've always done it in 3 days. This time around, it's been 4 days because of the complexity.
That's where we'll leave it, Mr. Mashego Shiburi, Deputy Chief Electoral Officer. Thank you for your time.
Are you ready to empower yourself with an accredited tertiary qualification? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning programs will set you up for success. Whether you're balancing work and family or you're a school leaver who must work to support yourself and your studies, Stadio offers access to high-quality, affordable qualifications in law, teacher education, commerce, admin and management, policing, and more. Mid-year applications are now open. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
EFC is live this Thursday. Two of the most thrilling fighting talents to have emerged from the Mother City in recent years, Tamelo Manyamala and Terrence Bolelo, put everything on the line to face each other for the interim flyweight title, which guarantees a shot against the currently unavailable champion Nekazimulu Zulu later in the year. Also, Ayanda Zwane and Sibarashe Akonya fight for #1 contendership. EFC 114 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
The reason that this is happening, the reason people feel the way they do is because of what happened in 2021. Sham, have things changed in Phoenix since then? I mean, has there been any healing, or is fear still the major sort of emotion at the moment? Is that really the problem here?
Well, I think since 2021, we've been very busy with communities from Bombay, from Inanda, from Zulisha. These were the affected areas. We are having various projects and programs which are currently also happening. And, this kind of thing is going to take a long time to heal. But we're very happy. I mean, in the next 1 week, in June 16, we're having in Inanda, where children from Phoenix would be interacting with Phoenix children from Mumbai on the issue of debate. We are hopeful that there is going to be peacing and lasting peace in the near future.
Sham Maharaj, thanks very much indeed. Phoenix Ubuntu Forum Coordinator.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes, 6 to 9 a.m.
Right, you just reflect on this, okay? Losing a loved one is never easy. Having to deal with all the paperwork afterwards is not appealing, especially when you and your family members are grieving. Knowing what to do when the time comes and having access to certain documents can make the process a little bit easier. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company, SA Limited, is a licensed FSP and life insurer.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
If you have a view on the conversation with the IEC, let me have it. You can WhatsApp, text, voice note, call in anytime. If you have a view on my birthday challenge, which is who should get a shout out. I see somebody saying, Ashraf, please give to the givers a shout out for the work they've done again this time around in the Eastern Cape. Okay, noted. Shout out to the gift to the givers. But who else needs a shout out for being absolutely champions at what they do? Let's now move to India as part of our Global Watch feature. India's had an election, and their election takes 6 weeks, not 6 hours or 6 days. It really does take 6 weeks for counting to be completed. The Prime Minister, Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP as they're known, well, they are expected to win this election. But I understand there's also some issues in certain regions, right? So let's find out more about where we are with India's election with Sanusha Naidu, who's a senior research associate at the Institute for Global Dialogue. Sanusha, you're live on the National Pulse. Hi.
Good day. How are you?
I'm very good indeed. Right. Is that election still ongoing? Is it closed? Are we at the counting process now?
We're in the counting process now. So this election began on April 19th. A record-breaking 642 million people cast their vote. It actually ended on Saturday past, and so we're in the counting process. Voter turnout was around about 66.3%. I mean, in the comparison of what we've just been through, this looks like really good numbers, right? But some analysts have pointed out that it's a percentage lower than 2019. But that's fine. But I think what's interesting now is, as the counting is taking place, remember they're voting for the lower house, which is the Lok Sabha, which has about 543 seats, and it's also for the national vote as well. So that's why it takes over 6 weeks, and I think it's one of the biggest democratic electoral exercises in the world, if I'm not mistaken. But trends seem to suggest that as much as the BJP party may actually come back into power, they come back in terms of not being able to sustain a majority on its own. So it will need a coalition. And that coalition, which is essentially quite important, because it then enables the BJP to remain within control of that majority mark they need within the Lok Sabha, which is about 272 seats or members. And as much as exit polls suggest that Modi could return to power for a third consecutive term, there are areas within, like little, what we would call voting districts, little localities where the Congress party has actually kind of pushed out those candidates of the BJP. And I think this is where it's becoming quite interesting because, for example, in an area like Amati, where previously the BJP's Irani candidate won, now you see that they have been defeated by the Congress party. So these little localities are becoming an interesting kind of dynamic around whether the BJP will retain that, will be able to meet that majority on its own or go into a coalition much more.
What does it say? I mean, it's interesting. The word coalition is something that we're sadly getting used to in this country, right? What does it say about the BJP? I mean, they've been in power for a while, not forever. I mean, they're not. South Africa's equivalent would be the Gandhi equivalent, right? And that's I would understand long gone, right? But if you're talking about coalition in India now, does that suggest there's a reason why a seemingly strong man is losing control of the country via the elections? What has happened to him?
Okay, so the coalition would be of parties that kind of align with the BJP's ideological and also its thinking around issues with regard to citizenship in terms of how you recast and reconfigure the kind of identity politics within that context. And you've seen that a lot happening in India with the BJP. Remember, the BJP came quite overwhelmingly into power in 2014. It was one of the most spectacular ways in which it wasn't just about a particular kind of constituency that voted the BJP into power. It was just across every kind of sector, locality, and subsector in India. But this time around, I think there's a lot of issues that are taking the BJP under a kind of microscope. One of it is that economic issues took precedence in this election. And there were lots of people, especially those students who haven't been able to find work, people who have been out of the country maybe as migrant laborers, coming back to the country and not finding work. And so this idea of promising what Modi promised as a kind of economic plan under the kind of two successive terms of the BJP, 2014 to 2019 and 2019 to now, I think kind of found a bit of a challenge in terms of how people were looking at their material circumstances and asking the question, has the BJP delivered? So a coalition in this context, I think, would be really based on some of those issues that have come to the fore in terms of what constitutes citizenship for all, the Citizenship Act, and how certain parties have aligned to it. Well, one of the bigger challenges for the BJP, for example, is in New Delhi, where they actually went and they kind of upended through a corruption case the leader of one of those localized, what we would call a regional party for us in South Africa, like a provincial party in Western Cape or in Gauteng. But in Delhi, it was a very important party. I forget the name now. But the leader had been incarcerated, charged. And that became critical because you're losing those kinds of big cities as well.
Okay, shades of South Africa. I'm thinking about provinces and municipalities that are run initially by the ruling party. Let's leave it at that. I'm sure we're going to talk to you lots more. Let them continue counting, and we'll get to that at the very end. Sanusha Naidu, Senior Research Associate at the Institute for Global Dialogue. Are you following India's election? What do you make of that? Let's get the news headlines now. It's just gone 3:30 with Eva Chipa.
News making headlines for this hour. Vodacom's forensic supervisor, Pinky Vaidhalingam, says she has no idea who requested a SIM swap on Senzo Mayua's phone number a day after his murder. Mayua was shot and killed on the 26th of October in 2014 while at Kelukumalu's parental home in Vosloorus on Gauteng's East Rand. In other news, KZN's Health MEC Nomakuku Simelane says off-duty healthcare workers and healthcare workers from other areas were called in last night to deal with the influx of injured people after a tornado hit Otongati north of Durban. And lastly, official figures from India's general election so far indicate that the governing alliance led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi is likely to win a third term, but with only a narrow parliamentary majority. I'll be back at 4 with more news. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, in Braamfontein, the M1 southbound is queuing towards Smith Street and Smith Street westbound is closed at the M1 highway. And the N14 in Centurion has a crash reported between Euphues Road and Jean Avenue, so expect slow-moving traffic in both directions. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle after Umgeni Road. The N3 westbound has a crash reported at Camperdown. All lanes are open. Old Main Road in Hillcrest is slow-moving near Cassie Road, and Phoenix Highway is where crime scene is reported at Trade Centre Junction, so the road has been closed off to road users, and some congestion reported in that Fairbreeze area. In the Eastern Cape, flooding, debris, wash away obstructions flowing with heavy rains in the Kariga area, so you're asked to proceed with caution throughout the region. On the R61 in Grafrenet, there's snow falling. That's on the Wapatsweg Pass. The road closure is in place, so you're asked to expect delays. On the N10, there's snow falling between Middelburg and Hanover, and that road closure as well as delays can expect it there as well. The N9 has snow falling reported at Lutzeburg Pass, so you're asked to expect delays there, and the R58 Barkley Pass has snow falling reported in that pass area, so you're asked to expect delays and diversions. In Cape Town, the N2 inbound has a crash reported after Jan Smuts Drive exit. The N1 outbound has a crash reported at the R300 interchange. The M7 Jakes Harville Drive in Mitchell's Plain is closed between Morganstair Road and Cedar Avenue, so you're asked to expect delays and diversions. And 35th Avenue in Bishop Lavis is flooding. That's near Lavis-Stride, so expect delays there. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Okay, Jimmy, you've got a non-sport story to start with.
Yeah, a very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Very disturbing news in the world of cycling. Cycling coach Sean-Nick Bester has been banned for 15 years after being found guilty by the sports national body of sexual grooming, harassment, and abuse. A whistleblower reported Bester to Cycling South Africa about his misconduct involving 2 young women aged 14 and 17 taking place at a school and Bester's home. And now Bester is also expected to pay 80% of Cycling South Africa's legal costs, who launched a formal investigation. Then in football, the next fixtures of the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers will go underway tomorrow, and the stakes have been raised ahead of the third match day out of 10 to be played. The first match in a week which sees Group H, Namibia, who are currently first, go up against Liberia, who are placed third at the Orlando Stadium in Johannesburg. Then in the other fixture in the group, Tunisia will face Equatorial Guinea at the Starter Olympic Hamadi Agrebi. Tunisia have gone through a spell of underwhelming performances, needing penalties to beat New Zealand when they played in an international friendly in March at the Cairo International Stadium. The winners of the groups will qualify for the next World Cup finals, and the second place teams will enter a playoff round which will decide which 2 sides will get spots in the tournament. In the meantime, Germany is ramping up security before the start of the European Championships on the 14th of June to head off potential threats from Islamist hooligans, violent individuals and cyber attacks. This is according to Interior Minister Nancy Faeser. Now, Germany expects 2.7 million people to attend matches in stadiums across the country and some 12 million in fan zones for outdoor viewing, but security fears have mounted after a spat of attacks in recent months. In cricket, India coach Rahul Dravid is set to stand down when his contract expires after the T20 World Cup. Dravid says that he will not reapply for the position after it was advertised by the governing body, the BCCI, last month. Now, the 51-year-old succeeded Ravi Shastri in 2021 and led India to the World Test Championship and 50 over World Cup finals last year, losing to Australia on both occasions. Anything's off with women in sports. Third seed, Coco Gauff recovered to beat Ashraf to advance to the semi-finals of the French Open. The 20-year-old showed her maturity to win 4-6, 6-2 and 6-3, meaning that now she has won 4 of her last 5 times that she has dropped the opening set at majors. And also Gauff has become the youngest player to reach 3 or more consecutive singles semi-finals at a Grand Slam event since 2007 with Maria Sharapova. And next up for her is a very interesting one. She faces top seed Iga Swiatek in what promises to be a cracker of a match.
And I'm thinking about Ons Jabeur. That's the Tunisian player. So she lost Wimbledon 2 years on the trot, right? Finals. So she's out of the French Open now. So who's the next African woman besides her? You're struggling and so am I struggling.
I was actually talking to a colleague earlier on that it's quite unfortunate that Coco had to beat Ans, or they were facing each other, because we like them both. But now we hope that, or from my side, I hope that Coco goes all the way.
Well, there you are. Let's see what happens. Okay, perfect. We'll talk again in an hour's time, right?
Yeah, with that said, I'll have more in the next hour for SAFM Sport. I'm Tumin Kapele.
Come closer. Over here. Man, oh man, do I have something to tell you. Huh? You know what would happen if you weren't here? No SABC Sport, no Skim Sam, no Uzalo, no deal or no deal. No Too Hot to Be Single, no family meetings, no radio, no nothing. Just dololo, silence. But you, my friend, you make it happen. Because you pay your home and business TV license. Now we can deal or no deal celebrity, Mobango, Hectic 99 and Footspoorder. So please keep on keeping on and do the right thing. So we can make new memories and tell stories for the now generation. SABC TV licenses. Pay yours, make a difference.
Get up to 10.75% per annum with an 18-month ABSA dynamic fixed deposit account, which allows you to build your financial future. Plus, you'll earn an additional interest rate if you join ABSA Rewards. Join tens of thousands of South Africans who've already taken advantage of this account's flexibility. Open yours now on our banking app or absa.co.za to maximize returns. Your story matters. ABSA is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The clock is on a downhill towards the world's most prestigious games, with a wide variety of exhilarating action such as aquatics, athletics, gymnastics, boxing, breakdancing, football, and many more. The 6th of June marks 50 days to the Olympics. The world's elite athletes are all eyeing a podium finish. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. Experience the Olympic Games Paris 2024 from Friday 26 July until Sunday 11 August. Live on SABC TV channels and SABC radio stations. SABC Sport is the official broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
I'll take your calls. Many people I put the challenge out to you. Who should I give a shout out to? An organization or a person that's doing really champion-like stuff? Because it's my birthday and I want to give a shout out to them, right? So we'll take your calls, but some comments on other things. My daughter saying, to me, I'd like to see those who are chosen into office to award every poor citizen a solar power which can generate a fridge and lights. My daughter, what if you worked it out? Let me know who it is. You'd be the most impactful, richest person in the world. I can assure you of that. Another one, we have the best constitution in the world. Yes, for the world, but not for us South Africans. Maybe you need to elaborate on why you say exactly what you say. Let's get to some of the voice notes now.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ashraf. Happy birthday, Ashraf. Happy birthday, Ashraf. I wonder how old are you, but I think you're going to tell us before the end of this show. Happy birthday, enjoy your day. I think it's going to be a great show, as always. Walter, a truck driver, BDS. Thank you.
You know, the way you said Walter, I promise you I thought of Walter Makwena. I really thought you were that person. But thanks for the birthday message, truck driver. Really appreciate the love and the energy that you exude in doing what you do and just giving me a shout out. But I want to give somebody else a shout out, so tell me who I should say that to. And there's more about the IEC now, right?
Again, Merkin Durban. Ashraf, just to correct you, it's not 18 parties, it's 26 political parties. 26. That's how many parties raised objections to these results.
Okay, got that. Well, as you heard from the IEC, you know, whether it's 18 or 26, I hear you. They're saying it's been resolved. They've come back. They've done some recounts. They've identified. They've told the people that there should be no reason for those people to say they still agree, but if they feel so, they've got 3 days to take it to the constitutional, to the electoral court, in fact, to raise a further objection and then tackle it further. Let's see who does what, because that's really the nub of it. You wouldn't do that if you don't think you've got a case, right?
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. It's Fred the Tracker. Can you ask your guest, Mr. Ashraf, please, when are they paying the volunteers, the IEC volunteers? When are they getting their money for their work?
If they're volunteers, they wouldn't get paid. Then they're not volunteers any longer. They can't be both. You can't be an employee and a volunteer at the same time. So I don't know what the terms of arrangement are, but you just can't be both, right? Okay, let's get to we'll get to some of the other callers in a moment. Let's get to some news that should concern you. You know, in fact, we'll have two takes on the economy or business and how it impacts all of us. Later on, we'll chat to Martin Kingston from Business for South Africa about their reaction to South Africa's election. But you may be aware now there was information on South Africa's GDP numbers, and there's been a further decrease. What does all that mean? Rusenga Maluleke, the statistician general of South Africa and also head of Stats South Africa. Good chatting to you as always. It's been like a once a week story, it seems like, Rusenga, at the moment. Hello.
Let me greet you, Ashraf, and wish you a happy birthday, and indeed greet the listeners.
Thank you so much. I promise you, if you could just say we can forecast now 3 percentage points increase of GDP, that's the best birthday gift we can give to the whole country. But you're not telling me that, right?
Oh, well, Ashraf, my job is to always measure, is not to push the numbers up and down.
Absolutely. Okay, give us the bad news then, unfortunately.
Well, let us start, and Ashraf, I like the point you're starting on, that is the bad news. For us, it's all news, bad or good or what, we always have to report. But straight to the point is that we have seen our economy as in the first quarter of 2024 contracting by 0.1%, and the biggest drivers in this contraction were largely reported in manufacturing. So when we look at a contraction, we don't look at the growth rate. If it's in the negative, we start off by looking at the contribution of a particular industry. So manufacturing contributed negative 0.2 of a percentage point to this negative growth. While it grew at 1.4%, its contribution was much more stronger. So are mining and construction, which contributed negative 0.1 of a percentage point each. And why manufacturing? It's because we will remember in the first quarter, we still had load shedding. Actually, load shedding has disappeared for the last 2 months. But in the first quarter, we still have had the prevalence of load shedding. And indeed, it has had an effect. Utilities themselves, in the form of electricity, gas, and water, have shown negative growth. And indeed, there was not much consumption because there was nothing as much produced.
Okay, so how should we then analyze this? I mean, you give the news, but we also need some analysis of what does this mean to the average person listening to us?
Well, firstly is that we know that an economy that is not growing, or an economy that is not growing sufficiently, will not create jobs. So an economy that is contracting from the production side, as well as also from the consumption side, is that it will not create employment. And we know that employment, education helps people get jobs, but when they can't get jobs, we know that people, education and employment, lack of them are greatest contributors of poverty. So what it means is that an economy that is not growing will ultimately affect people in the lack of employment and will leave them poorer.
Yeah, which means that the population increases at a rate higher than the economic growth. So effectively it's more difficult, more poorer. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us in conclusion?
Well, what I would like to say is that we have seen also from the expenditure side on GDP that household consumption has grown in the negative, but particularly it was clothing and footwear. And we will remember that in the last quarter of last year, which was around the festive seasons, this sub-component of household expenditure had gone in the positive because people were spending a lot more money during Christmas and festives. Now it is gone in the negative. But also investments have not performed well from the third quarter of last year. That is gross fixed capital formations. And in this regard, we know that particularly when there was an expectation of elections, investors withhold their investments while they await which way elections will always go. And it's not here only in South Africa, but the world over.
Understandably. Let's leave it at that. Risenga Maluleke, Statistician General, appreciate your time as always. Thank you. And those numbers, the economy contracting, becoming smaller, tighter by 0.1 percentage points in the first quarter of the year. A range of factors, as you've heard, involved in that. Thank you for that. Right. We'll get to calls as soon as we can. And I'll pick up another issue that somehow links to business, the business and politics and how they come together. We'll talk to the head of business for South Africa right after this.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, thanks. Many birthday messages, by the way, besides people calling in terms of just quick comments from Cecil. Happy birthday, happy born date, much appreciated. And another one from the person who always calls but never puts your name on it. I don't know why, just happy belated birthday. It's not belated, it's all day today. But I'm also interested in turning this around to say, who can I give a shout out to, a person or an organization that are best in class, like champions in their field, because it's my birthday and I want to sort of use that to amplify other people's greatness. So if you've got a name, person, organization, just WhatsApp, text, or you can also call in when we get a chance just now. I would like to know. Right, let's talk about business and politics, right? So much has happened in the last few days. And the next question is around, coalitions and what that really means. So what's the position of business regarding what happens next in our country? Martin Kingston with me from Business for South Africa is the chairperson there. Martin, it's always good chatting to you once again. You're live on the National Pulse.
Afternoon to you and your listeners, Ashraf. I hope everybody is well.
Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about this. I mean, I know in the lead up to, and I know there's different organizations, but in the lead up to the election, if I'm not mistaken, there's Busi Mavuso, the CEO of Business Leadership SA, suggesting that if the country votes in a certain direction that is more right wing and more rather left wing and less business friendly, business may have to relook at their relationships, right? Where do you fit in on all of this in terms of who's in power, who forms coalitions? What does it mean to business in your position?
Yeah, well, let me start with Busi first, Ashraf. So Busi, as the chief executive of BLSA, sits on the steering committee of Business to South Africa. BLSA and many of its members are key participants in the process. As you know, we've got 135 plus CEOs who committed to the process, many of whom are overseeing individual focus areas in energy, transport and logistics, and crime and corruption, and many of whom are drawn from her membership and indeed from her board. So there's no division between the approach that Boosie is taking and the broader aspect of our own commitment to this process, which is that for the last year, effectively, we've been partnering very successfully with government in these three focus areas of energy, transport and logistics, and crime and corruption. I don't think it's controversial that if we don't fix them, we're not going to fix the economy more broadly, and if we do, we can unlock the possibility for real, sustainable, inclusive economic growth, which is absolutely critical if we're going to address both the challenges of our country, but also to make sure that we can aspire to get onto the right sort of trajectory. And we've made real progress, Ashraf, as you know, under the overall leadership of the President with his cabinet colleagues. We have 6 to 8 weekly meetings where we review what we're doing jointly with government, and we look back and indeed we look forward, and we've planned through to effectively April of 2025. And what we have said is that we are fully committed to this partnership, but we need to have a counterparty in government that is equally committed to both structural reform and the relevant interventions that are necessary. And of course, and by definition, that means it needs to be a business-friendly approach which embraces the role of the private sector in providing the necessary skills, expertise, and capabilities into the process. Now, if in fact the outcome of the current process is that we find ourselves confronted by a business-unfriendly counterparty in government, we're going to take stock, because we're not going to go into a process where there isn't a reciprocity of approach, but we don't know what that's going to be. And as we've said publicly, we need to wait now until this process is over, and then we will sit across the table, if we're invited so to do, by the President and the President's cabinet colleagues, and we will either recommit to the process or we won't.
Now, what for you then is the difference between a business-friendly government and a business-unfriendly government?
Well, certainly, I think the first point I would make is that they need to welcome the involvement of business. And when I say business, it's not just big business, it's all business, in working alongside government and achieving national objectives, whether that be, as I said, in the context of energy. If you look over the last 12 months, we've seen a manifest reduction in the level of load shedding, 61% overall year on year, 80% reduction in terms of stage 4 and above. By two factors. One is because we've seen a higher level of energy availability, in part because of skills that have been seconded into Eskom by the private sector, in part because significant new generation that has come onto the grid, almost all of which, or in fact I have to say all of which, is the private sector, whether it's households or whether it's businesses, that needs to carry on and indeed accelerate. If we were to be confronted with a situation where the private sector is no longer welcome in terms of the generation of new energy, we would have a major problem. And by the way, so would the country. If we recognize that the private sector, Ashraf, is responsible for 70% of the employment, 80% of the fixed capital investment, and the vast majority of the taxes that are paid, it's in everybody's interest to ensure that the private sector, as I said, large and small, formal and informal, can thrive in any environment. And to do that, we need to have, as I said, a business-friendly one which accommodates and indeed encourages the private sector to play its role.
Okay, so
now, some parties...
Yeah, carry on.
So some parties have indicated that they are not interested in going down this road, that they don't see the private sector playing a role such as this. Well, under those circumstances, it's inconceivable that we try and force ourselves into the equation. We need to have a willing, collaborative partnership. That's exactly what we've enjoyed. You'll remember, Ashraf, we started this partnership in the context of battling the pandemic and then the vaccination rollout. It was very successful. We believe that we supported the government. And when I say the government, I don't mean the ANC. I mean the government of the day. Again, we've been very clear about that. We'll continue to do so if it's prepared to both welcome us and work with us. If it's not, then we can't, by definition.
So help me understand this conundrum. And you're quite right for clarifying that you are supportive of government, not the ruling party, which we know inevitably then morphs into government anyway when they win an election. Now, this year is rather complicated, right? So in terms of what you have on the table now, if we look at the four major parties coming out of this election, which parties have ruled themselves out from working with you based upon, A, their pronouncements and their own policies?
Well, I think we can say without fear of contradiction that the ANC, which has been the government until now and still is as of today, has been cooperative and collaborative in the context of this partnership. It's endorsed it very publicly, and indeed all of our planning and much of the structural reform that is underway in the energy sector, in the transport and logistics sector, is based upon that type of partnership. So the public sector, private sector partnership, the freight logistics roadmap, playing a role in key corridors, all of that, the Transnet Recovery Plan, assumes the private sector playing a significant role. That has been the position of the ANC. That has been the position, for the sake of argument, of the DA. The EFF has been much less clear. In fact, it's been hostile in a number of respects, as indeed has been MKP. We are, I would have to say, not going to get caught up in a discussion about the merits or the demerits of who should be in a coalition discussion or a discussion about collaboration. We all believe, I think it's fair to say within business, that there needs to be stability, predictability, and certainty as to the direction of travel, including economic policy. We are certainly committed to sustainable, inclusive economic growth, particularly addressing the issues of unemployment, poverty, and inequality, but not at the expense of ensuring that we have a growing and thriving economy, where, as I said, the private sector is the biggest single driver of all of the key metrics, whether it be employment, whether it be taxes, as I said, whether it be fixed capital investment, and it affects all of us, whether we are in employment or not, that the private sector should indeed thrive. So if we have political parties, Ashraf, that indicate that they are not well disposed towards business playing the sort of role that it is playing and could increasingly play, then we won't be interested in engaging with them in terms of any partnership, because there won't be a partnership.
Okay, so are you therefore engaging with the ANC and the DA in terms of guiding them as to what possibly may happen if they form part of a coalition?
No, not at all. I think I know there's been a lot of suggestion that that's the case. The ANC and the DA, indeed, all of the political parties that have been part of the current sixth administration, are well aware of the work that business is doing broadly and that Business for South Africa is doing in a very focused way. We have made many presentations. We've had many engagements with them. We're not seeking to lobby with respect to the process, because our position is absolutely clear as to, A, the contribution that we've already made, and indeed the value that we can add going forward. I have no reason to believe that any of the key political parties are unaware of that commitment by business.
All right, here's the last thing in 30 seconds. Let's just say, for whatever reason, that the new coalition is business unfriendly, right? What implications would that then have in terms of the role of business in this very challenging economy and a challenging country that we have, in terms of working with government?
Well, I think in those circumstances, you're going to see capital flight. I think that you're going to see people disinvesting, people not investing for the longer term for the reasons that I've already articulated. And I think that will have a hugely damaging impact upon economic prospects for the country. This is all about stabilizing and improving confidence levels. So I sincerely hope we don't find ourselves in that sort of circumstances, Ashraf.
And that's where we can leave it. Thank you for your time. Certainly got us thinking. Martin Kingston from Business for South Africa, B4SA, the chairperson there. We'll have this up as a podcast ASAP. In fact, we have all the issues we've already discussed up as a podcast. Go to safm.co.za. You'll find it on our website, and also getting shared immediately via the SAFM social media platforms, Twitter or X in particular, as well as on Facebook. Check it out. This is the National Pulse. Let's get to the news headline. The news, in fact, with Eva. It's 4 o'clock.
Thanks, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Death toll rises in Eastern Cape floods, and off-duty healthcare workers called up amid KZN storms. Good afternoon. I'm Eva Chipa. The number of people that died as a result of floods in the Eastern Cape has risen to 10. This after the body of a female that went missing at the Rocklands area was found around 1 o'clock today. Police have also identified the 7 other people who died in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. Police spokesperson Sandra Janse van Rensburg says that the inquest dockets have been opened and the search by the SAPS K9 and rescue units continues.
In KwaZulu, 4 deceased persons were Aluta Brown, Ndomiso Boysen, Tamsanka Plaikis, and Tondikolo Jonas. Abonita Adams drowned in Kamesh, while Clive Noah from Kariga also died due to the excessive flooding. One person, Siselo Lesipo, from warmer location, also lost his life.
Vodacom's forensic supervisor, Pinky Vaidalingam, says she has no idea who requested a swim swap and sent him a US phone a day after he was murdered. Mayu was shot and killed on the 26th of October in 2014 while at Kilikumala's parental home in Vosloorus on Gauteng's East Rand. Responding to State Prosecutor Ronnie Sibanda, Vaidalingam says the swim swap was done at the Benmore Garden Shopping Centre on the 27th of October.
Are you able to tell whether an ID document was presented to the agent? Are you able to tell who did the SIM swap?
Do you mean the person that had requested a new SIM card?
That's correct.
No, I have no idea.
Okay. Now on the new SIM card, were there any calls that were made from the phone or received from that particular SIM card?
There were 63 successful calls.
In other news, KZN Health MEC Nomagugu Simelane says off-duty healthcare workers and healthcare workers from other areas were called in last night to deal with the influx of injured people after a tornado hit Otongati north of Durban. She says 120 people were treated at a local clinic last night, while another 69 people came to the clinic with minor injuries this morning. Simelane says those needing more specialized care are being referred to 3 Durban hospitals.
We are very much aware that, because people have been working at home trying to secure their possessions, some might not realize how injured they are. So throughout the day, they will still be coming in.
2 girls aged 4 and 7 have been burnt to death in Soshanguve, north of Pretoria, over the weekend, while 6 other patrons were allegedly shot at a shebeen in the Changing Spot informal settlement in the same area. 4 victims sustained injuries and were taken to the nearest hospital, while 2 died at the scene. The Gauteng police's preliminary investigation suggests the suspects were after the father of the 2 girls, who was not at home during the incident. Gauteng police spokesperson Mavela Masondo.
2 of the victims, a male and a female, died on the scene, and the other 4 were taken to the nearest medical care center. The suspects proceeded to a shack in the same area where they allegedly set alight the shack where 2 young girls were sleeping. Police are working hard together with the community and are following the leads that might soon result in the arrest of the suspects.
And lastly, looking further afield, official figures from India's general election so far indicate that the governing alliance led by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is likely to win a 3rd term, but with only a narrow parliamentary majority. Modi's BJP and its partners are ahead with 290 seats. The BBC's Arunodai Mukherjee has the details.
This is where the 543 lawmakers will be sitting, figuring out policy and figuring out the next 5 years. Who will be those 543 parliamentarians? Because in what is appearing to be a surprise or a shock for the ruling BJP, compared to the landslide that everyone was anticipating for Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party, well, that has not happened. The Indian opposition, which were dozens of parties which banded together to unite and form an opposition front calling themselves the India Alliance, seems to have done well in a lot of pockets.
Recapping the top story at 4. The number of people that died as a result of floods in the Eastern Cape has risen to 10. This after the body of a female that went missing at the Rocklands area was found at around 1 o'clock today. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
In your sports, Mbappe speaks for the first time as Real Madrid player and green ready to give it all for Australia after IPL rolls. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Parktown is slow moving towards Jan Smuts Avenue exit. Glenhove Road eastbound in Houghton Estate is slow moving towards the N1 highway. The N14 southbound in Centurion has a crash reported between Eupheus Road and Jean Avenue, and the N14 northbound in Pretoria has delays towards the R101 interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle just before Spaghetti Junction. In Phoenix on Phoenix Highway, there's a crime scene reported at Trade Center Junction. The road has been closed off, and Phoenix Highway eastbound is queuing towards Chris Hani Road. Slow-moving traffic reported in that Fairbreeze area, and Old Main Road in Hillcrest is slow-moving near Cassie Road. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend. The N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound is slow-moving at Voortrekker Road. The M5 southbound is slow-moving towards Kromboom Road exit, and the N1 outbound is slow-moving towards Okavango Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more. Just to be the one who buys your car, will come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da. We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
EFC is live this Thursday. Two of the most thrilling fighting talents to have emerged from the Mother City in recent years, Tamelo Manyamala and Terrence Bolello, put everything on the line to face each other for the interim flyweight title, which guarantees a shot against the currently unavailable champion Nekazimulu Zulu later in the year. Also, Ayanda Zwane and Sibarashe Akonya fight for #1 contendership. EFC 114 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Do not forget, there's a podcast of all the conversations we've had, including that fascinating one with regard to business and the politics of the day that we just had with Martin Kingston, but also about India and the issues we've had earlier on about the IEC as well. We'll chat to Kosatu coming up later on, getting their thoughts on a possible coalition. Well, as you know, I mean, they're very much in the ANC camp as part of that tripartite alliance. And I will get to some of the calls and picking up some of the other voice notes. But by the way, as well, if you're tweeting out, use that hashtag The National Pulse. Effectively tell me what's driving the National Pulse today. Because every day different things drives the nation's pulse, and you tell me what it is. Right. Let's talk about some good news. I wouldn't say for a change. No, we have good news every day. It just depends where you look for it, isn't it? And the good news certainly links around the issue of the petrol or fuel price, because from midnight, basically what I'm saying, don't fill up petrol now. From midnight tonight, so tomorrow morning, effectively, the price of both grades of petrol will drop by R1.24 per litre. The cost of diesel falls between R1.08 and R1.18. Let's understand the reasoning behind that. Good news. Robert Marke with me, Director for Fuel Price Mechanism at the Department of Energy. Robert, you're live on the National Pulse. Hello.
Good afternoon and good afternoon to the listeners, Ashraf.
When we talk about what drives the National Pulse, nothing drives the National Pulse better than the fuel price being driven downwards. I can assure you of that, right? So why the good news? What's happened?
Yeah, it's mainly because of the lower prices and the stronger rand against the US dollar during the period under review. We've seen the price of crude oil averaging around $83 per barrel during that period. So that's mainly the reason for that. So it's mainly oil coming from USA and non-OPEC members who are flooding the market with oil, but also because the global economy is slowing down. It's not necessarily growing as projected by economists.
So a growing economy slowing down has a impact on better oil, cheaper oil prices for us, so lower oil prices, which means better for us, right?
Yes, remember the demand, it means there's no demand for petrol and diesel because the economy is not growing and therefore the prices will drop.
Okay, well, that's good news for us, right? Anything else you need to tell us about this issue?
The other factor is the lower prices of propane and butane, which reduced the price of LP gas by 135 cents per kilogram. You will know that our LP gas is made of propane and butane 60 and 40%. So those prices also were lower. But also what our friends, the AA, missed out is on the slate levy. They will not have known about that. The slate levy also decreased by 17.54 cents a litre during the period under review.
You know, I often get asked this to say, why would you not average out the price and peg it for a complete year and have an annual review as opposed to what seemingly now means, dramatic changes up and down like virtually every couple of months?
That will be very interesting because some people, Ashraf, were saying, let's look at the maybe quarterly adjustment. Some are saying, no, we rather be in weekly adjustment. Some countries are doing daily adjustment. The challenge with that, Ashraf, is that remember these prices are changing in the market on daily basis. So in a situation where the prices are going up and you fix the price for the whole year, your suppliers might run out of money to actually bring more product into the market because they won't be recovering that money anyway. Of course, the opposite will be good for consumers if the prices are dropping. Also good for the oil companies. If we fix the price at a certain amount and the price keeps on going down, it means the oil companies are actually over-recovering unnecessary, even though they are not spending that money in the market.
Interesting indeed. Okay, so well, maybe there's a good reason for that, but we're hoping there's far more good news, lower price announcements than higher price announcements. So when we next meet, that is, right?
Yeah, well, so far we've seen the oil price is still going down. It's staying below around $81 per barrel. So we are hoping, even though OPEC members met on Sunday, there was no real impact from their meeting. The market did not really react, even though they indicated that they would like to keep their production cut, but the market did not necessarily respond negatively to those news.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Robert Marquet, Director for Fuel Price Mechanism at the Department of Energy. I would expect that all day tomorrow, well, from midnight tonight, but all day tomorrow, busy day with you filling up your cars with the petrol. But the bottom line is this. On my birthday, don't fill up today. That's the best birthday gift I can give you. Just keep it on hold, okay? And then do it to midnight or tomorrow morning. We'll get a reaction from COSATU in terms of what their thoughts are regarding coalition in a moment. And I also want to pick out some further comments via WhatsApp, text, as well as voice notes and your calls right after this.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, a couple of nice birthday wishes, but again, as I've told you before, let's swing it around. And on my birthday, let me give a shout out to a person, organization that are real champions at what they do. That's the best birthday wish I want to deliver on. So impact on the broader society. Here's another comment.
Hi, Asha. Happy birthday to you, brother. Oh, have a lovely day, brother, and a good show. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, who do I give a shout out to? But thanks for that message anyway. Much appreciated. Here's one on business.
Hi, Mr. Ashraf. Mr. Ashraf, business is there to make money. It's there to make profit. So these business people, they don't have the interest of the people at heart. When the Steinhoff and your Mackenzie and your whatever happened, where was business South Africa? When the prices of fuel is skyrocketing, where is business there? When we don't have electricity, where is business there?
In fact, businesses' prices just going down, but you may have heard before from business for South Africa. In fact, when we had COVID and government couldn't do enough, business actually came in and supported government big time with big funding around some of the grants that were given to people. Business funded that. If we say business are here to only make profits, okay, let's say yes or no, but let's say it's true. Question then is, imagine if business did not make a profit, if they were not self-sufficient, self-sufficient, where would they get their money from to survive? People would be employed. They would join that long growing queue of 350 rand a month, and you don't want that, do you? Here's another on business.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, it's Mona in Cape Town. I think you must give a big shout out to John Rupert. John Rupert has been doing great work silently. Didn't want anyone to applaud him. Did you know that he paid a very expensive surgery for Sia Collisi so that he can participate in the World Cup, because his surgery was too expensive and his injury was too bad that he could not even participate in the World Cup? And also give a shout out to the Springbok. The Springbok are playing very well and uniting a country that is being tried to be divided by the lefties. The ANC, the EFF and the MK and all the other black historians. Thank you so much. It's Mona in Cape Town. The Springbok and John Rupert, they must get a shout out.
Okay, well, you've given them the shout out. Controversial in terms of John, I think Johan Rupert you're referring to, right? Springboks, yeah, but they're not playing at the moment. Well, are they? In fact, the Proteas are playing right now. They won their first match in the T20 World Cup, beating Sri Lanka, so maybe a good shout out to them. But look, broadly speaking, you have lots of wealthy business people, and if they're able then to use their funding to uplift society, either in terms of sponsorship, creating new job opportunities, CSI projects, effectively adopting communities and turning them around, I think that's a very, very good thing if they can do that. What you do want is to have everybody have a seat at the table. That's what I'm saying. How many more people can we get a seat at the table? And if the table's too small, just grow the table bigger. You certainly want to get many people on that table. Let's get to some of the callers now. I think it's Janus we're going to go first up to. Janus, hi.
Hi, Ashraf. All the best on your birthday. I don't ask you how old you are, but everything what can be the best for you and for your family. But I'm going to ask you the question quickly. What will be the best performance, best celebration of your birthday, at home or a restaurant? Maybe sometimes, because sometimes you go at home and you don't feel it's your birthday. You're working hard, but the people enjoy it.
Well, I'll tell you what. If it's me, if it's a big party, then for me it's home, not restaurant. I like home. I like people coming together at home. Today is just my wife and I, so it's restaurant, just two of us. That's it, right? But otherwise, no. I like the home one. But the real celebration is what I've said to you earlier on, Janus, that what I'd like is people to give others a shout out. That's my birthday gift. I'm encouraging using the platforms that I have here on air and on social media to say, how can we raise the level of and the profiles of people that we don't really know, not the Springboks, we know them, others that deserve that profile. So thanks for that, Janus. Much appreciated. Let's get to thanks for that, Janus. Cyril in Soweto, in fact. Cyril, hello.
Yes. Hello, Mr. Ashraf.
Yeah, you're live on the air, Cyril. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Ashraf, for first, I just want to ask you about, are we having our raw material reserve or gold reserve here in South Africa?
Sorry, I'm not sure what you're trying to say. The line's bad, and what's your point around it? Just help us understand it.
Well, no, I'm just asking that, are we having, here in South Africa, are we having a gold reserve? Maybe that gold reserve
Yeah, but you were supposed to speak about business and politics. I'm not sure what you mean, and I can't hear you very clearly on that one, Cyril.
Yeah, actually, I just want to ask about this thing, because this business is in politics, because it seems as if this business is it's them that they control government, because I don't understand while South Africa, there's a lot of youth that's sitting down. There's no work, but they're doing work here. They're doing profits, and South Africa is number one. It's number one in all of Africa. All of Africa.
All right. The line's getting worse. We're struggling to hear you very clearly, but I hear you. I mean, I hear something what you're saying about business and politics. The fact is, political parties are run by funding. Until that ever stops, if anything, there's going to be some influence on the people who fund not one party, all the parties, from the ANC going all the way down. All parties get funded, and there has to be some form of influence or reasons they do just that, right? Right. Well, Lanyas, we'll talk to you just now. There's another one. A special shout out to Pastor Sylvester from Freedom Recovery Center. You should tell me why we should give that person a special shout out. Now, we should be chatting, I can tell you now. We'll be chatting after 5 o'clock. On some of the issues that's come through regarding the IEC. And I think, we'll talk about that later on. But for now, we're going to talk to COSATU and get their opinion on their position, rather, regarding that all-important C word, the coalition, right after this.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's get COSATU's position on the elections. We understand the ANC-NEC meeting that should have taken place today has been postponed. We don't really know why. On the other hand, you have particularly the ANC and specifically the alliance partners, the SACP and COSATU, who would be very much part of all those decision-making, I would think, right? Let's get then the position of COSATU with their spokesperson, the acting spokesperson, Matthew Parks. Matthew, appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Right. So we know there are coalition talks and even more than that. What's COSATU's position on this?
So we're just still having discussions internally. Our national office that has met yesterday. We're having a political commission tomorrow where we'll be able to consult with affiliates about what's our way forward, what are our recommendations to the SSCP, to the ANC, our alliance partners. We have had an alliance secretariat yesterday. And we've been invited to the ANC and extended NSC as well on Thursday. So it's still very much discussions. There's no hard and fast, positions yet. But still early days.
Okay, so you don't have a formal position that you'd like to tell us?
No, because we're still going to a political commission tomorrow where we'll be taking our recommendations to the affiliates, and ultimately it's a decision of the affiliates on what recommendations should we then take to the ANC.
All right. And as part of the opposite of recommending, would it also be that you have a position on who you do not want the ANC to deal with at all? Have you ruled any parties out?
Look, there's some parties obviously we don't really like. There's some parties whose policies are offensive to us. But I think for us, we don't want to kind of really get into Party A, Party B, Party C, because that means that we'll be kind of negotiating with the ANC through the media. We don't want to do that. We don't want to be fair to them. And of course, we also need to kind of finalize our own positions COSATU tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, and therefore maybe the broader question to ask is, what do you think, what sort of coalition, and I know you're not going to mention parties, that's fine, what sort of coalition would be the best type of coalition arrangement or NGU arrangement for South Africa?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's messy, and because elections are messy, hence we've got messy options, and they all have, real challenges. I think for us it's about stability, continuity. We want to see a government which is anchored on the ANC election manifesto. I think for us what's the red line is that we can't have an arrangement which says we're going to weaken workers' rights, we're going to scrap the labour laws, we're going to stop the ANC transformation mandate. I think for us that would be a no-go. But we're not too stressed about that. We think there are a lot of options. One can go for an ANC minority government. One can go for a government of national unity. We would have to also then look what are the modalities of each of those. How would you manage it practically to ensure stability? Whichever permutation you take, there are real pros and there are also real cons as well, which need to be kind of managed. So I think it's quite a sensitive thing, and I think we just need to kind of, all of us, take a deep breath and just kind of be a little bit focused on what are the key things. But for us, it's about anchoring in progressive principles. defending workers' rights, defending the infrastructure transformation mandate, ensuring we have stability. It shouldn't be a fight over positions.
I mean, here's one that relates to the election, but it's beyond that. It's Farai saying, well, first, happy birthday to me, but then saying, ask COSATU and those who agree with it why they are anti-business and its allies when it is that very business that they do rely on for jobs. So if business suffers, COSATU suffers, and the opposite happens when business thrives. And Farai linking that, of course, to the whole coalition that may emerge from this election.
Yeah, so now, trade unions are anti-business. It would be similar to say business are anti-workers. What trade unions want is for workers to be paid a living wage, for companies to avoid retrenchment, for companies to respect workers' labor rights. So that doesn't mean anti-business, because if you take that angle, it would mean that business are anti-workers. But I think for us, and we also work closely with government and business at NEDLAC, for example, in the bargaining councils, in the master plan, to say, how do we grow the economy? What are the obstacles for companies to be productive, to sell their products? Because we do need companies, as the fellow saying correctly, we need companies to do well, because if companies don't do well, workers don't get paid, workers get retrenched. So I think that's why we work quite closely with government, with business, in a variety of forums to say how to make sure we end load shedding, how to make sure the trains run on time, how to deal with corruption, etc. Because we need all of us to succeed, for each of us to succeed.
And we can't wait for that coalition deal to be made public, and then we all know we can get on with our lives, right? Matthew Parks, thanks for your time, acting COSATU spokesperson. I'll get some calls as well. Let's see if I can get to some of the callers right away. In fact, we get to the Eastern Cape now. It's been very cold in the Western Cape, rain both Eastern Cape, Western Cape, flooding as well. Mwande is there. Hi, Mwande.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. I hope you guys have been fine with the flooding. I mean, in your region.
No, I'm in the Eastern Cape, yes, but I'm fine.
Yeah, okay. Thank goodness for that. Okay, let's talk about the coalitions. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm a person who's having a disability, who's visually impaired. Mm-hmm. But I'm hoping for this issue of coalition, that let's hope that the new government that will come with the coalition, that they would take care of us, because really it was very painful with the previous governing party for not caring for us people with disabilities, because it's very painful for almost 80% of us people with disabilities. We all solely depend on disability grant, regardless of the education that we have. Let's hope the new government now will consider us.
So when you say not caring, I mean, there's been a department that effectively pays attention to disability specifically. What more should government does certain things? What more should they do?
That department said, to tell you the truth, it does not do anything for us. Even if you visit, I visited that department physically, and also the offices that are located in the offices of the premiers, that is for special programs. When you find there's not even a single person who's employed with disability who can assist you. You find people who are able to there who can't assist you with anything. We are just being taken up and down if you ask for assistance.
Okay, got that. Thank you for that call. And let's see how they respond, Mwande, in terms of the new government. Still ANC dominated, just making the point. And I think they've done a lot. But in fact, here's the question to all of you, right? Has government done enough for people living with disability in terms of, they can't do everything, but have they done enough? Or do you think they've fallen short? And if they've fallen short, where have they fallen short? Right, let's get to Bushbuck Ridge now. Lanyas Mashile on the line. Hi, Lanyas.
Hi, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm good indeed. Go ahead. I'm sure you have strong views. Tell me.
Yes, no, it's Ashraf. We are leaders of SANCO, and we are a community-based organization. The effect of government has a lot of implications and impact on our members and community members, community structures. And therefore, we have got a serious interest in what is happening after the outcomes of the elections. And Ashraf, SANCO is a social movement. It's a social organization, community-based organization. And we believe in making sure that our communities have a better life. And therefore, given that the ANC has received the most votes than all other parties at the national level, we expect that the ANC should form government. And the kind of government, given the circumstances that the outcomes have actually presented, that the coalition government should come to place. We expect the ANC to form government with the left-leaning parties so that the aspect of socialism continues to change the lives of our communities, because we believe capitalism will never serve our communities better.
Okay.
And we can't force the ANC then to make a choice, but we are making that particular call that the ANC should actually look at the left-leaning political parties in order to form a government.
And very quickly, just in 30 seconds, if they have to go the right-leaning way?
Well, you have got all political parties that are not capitalistic in nature in place, and in the form of the MK Party, the EFF, the Patriotic Alliance, going down.
No, but I'm talking about the right. Okay, let's leave it at that. We need to move it on to news time. Lanius Mashila, thank you for your time from Bushbuck Ridge, saying the ANC is the dominant party, not necessarily the majority party. They need to go left, not right, with regard to the coalition. Let's get to the news headlines now with Eva.
Thanks, Ashraf. In your news making headlines for this hour, curious onlookers are being urged to steer clear of the disaster-hit areas of Otongati north of Durban, as it is hampering aid efforts. At least 10 people have been killed and scores injured or displaced as a tornado ripped through the area, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. In other news, the number of people that died as a result of floods in the Eastern Cape has now risen to 10. This after the body of a female that went missing at the Rocklands area was found at around 1 o'clock today. And lastly, shipping organizations have welcomed the new rules on reporting containers lost at sea introduced by the International Maritime Organization. Under the changes, captains are obliged to immediately report containers overboard to other ships, the nearest coastal state, and the country under which the vessel is flagged. Greg House will be back with more news at 5. For SFM News, good afternoon. I'm Eva Chipa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview has a stationary vehicle on the link to the N12 East at Giluli's interchange. The N12 eastbound in Boksburg has a crash on the off-ramp to Rondebolt Road. The N1 northbound in Midrand is queuing towards New Road exit. Glenhove Road eastbound in Houghton Estate is slow moving towards the M1 highway, and the N14 southbound in Centurion has a crash between Eupheus Road and Jean Avenue. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle just before Spaghetti Junction in Phoenix on Phoenix Highway. Crime scene reported at Trade Center Junction. The road's been closed, and Phoenix Highway eastbound is queuing towards Chris Hani Road. Slow moving traffic reported in that Fairbreeze area, and Old Main Road in Hillcrest is slow moving near Cassie Road. In the Eastern Cape, flooding, debris, wash away obstructions flowing with heavy rains in the Kariga area. You're asked to proceed with caution through the region. On the R61 in Graaff-Reinet, slow falling on Wappatsberg Pass. The road has been closed off and delays are possible. The N10 has snow falling reported between Middelburg and Hanover, with road closures and delays also to be expected. The N9 has snow falling reported at Lutzeburg Pass, so expect delays and diversions. The R58 Barclay Pass has snow falling in the pass, so you asked to expect delays and diversions. And the N2 southbound has sea debris on the carriageway between John Talent Road and the M4 Settlers Way, so expect delays. In Cape Town, the N12 in Oudtshoorn, Maringspoort Pass is closed due to flooding. 35th Avenue and Bishop Lavis also has flooding reported near Lavis Drive, so expect delays. And the R44 Clarence Drive has rock falls and mudslide patches reported between Gordons Bay and Royal, so please proceed with caution. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
And we have the Minister of Sport. Go ahead.
Alrighty. In your sports this hour, starting off with football, Kylian Mbappe says that joining Real Madrid is a dream come true for Following confirmation of his move to Santiago Bernabeu, Madrid announced yesterday that Mbappe will be joining them once as his Paris Saint-Germain contract runs out this month, bringing an end to one of football's longest transfer sagas. Now, Mbappe becomes the third major free agent signing to put pen on paper on a pre-contract agreement with Madrid in recent years. He even got a congratulations from Cristiano Ronaldo. Elsewhere, Banyana midfielder Kolosa Biyana says that South Africans can expect a much better and more improved performance from Banyana when they take on Senegal tonight. The two nations face off in the second of two international friendlies games at 7 p.m. In the first outing at the same venue, the clash ended in a 1-1 draw after Thabiseng Magia had given the visitors the lead before it was cancelled in referee's optional time. And Biyana says that it would be a good feeling to return home victorious.
You can expect a better performance, better and much improved performance. Expect us to play at a higher intensity than we did in the first game. Move the ball quicker, be more mobile, and positive result. A win for that game going back home. It would be nice for us. It would be nice also for the new players. So we're definitely going to give our best, and we got to analyze the game. We got to speak about a lot of things. So much improved performance, fix a lot of things, reduce the amount of mistakes that we made, and try and be just quicker on the ball, play forward and score more goals so that we can win the game.
Elsewhere, Austrian side LSK have confirmed the signing of former Germany international Jerome Boateng. The 35-year-old former Manchester City, Bayern Munich and Lyon centre-back has joined the Austrian Bundesliga side following a season playing for Serie A side Salernitana. Now, he signed a 2-year deal with the LASK to keep him at the club until 2026. In cricket, Australia all-rounder Cameron Green says that he's ready to bat up and down the order at the T20 World Cup. The right-hander had a slow start batting at number 3 for Royal Challengers Bangalore, but thrived when slotted into the middle order after being dropped for a few games. Green may also be called into action while captain and all-rounder Mitchell Marsh is unable to bowl as he recovers from a hamstring strain. In boxing, South African junior bantamweight champion Phumelela Kafu says that he is ready to face fire from some people at home in East London for leaving Songile Matiti's Xaba Academy and joining the Hotbox gym of successful Johannesburg trainer Colin Nathan. Kafu is rated number 4 by the IBF, 3rd by WBO and 7th by WBA and 11th by the WBC. And Kafu says that he wanted to join Nathan before his first professional boxing back in 2018. That was also the year Nathan established No Doubt Management, which produced its first world champ in Heki Butler. And Kafu said that his contract with Matiti expires on the 14th of June. Then finally, in the business of sport, talking about Mbappe moving to Madrid, the 25-year-old actually has taken a significant pay cut by joining the Spanish Giants. He was earning around £21.4 million, which is around 512 million rand per season at Paris Saint-Germain. And now he will reportedly earn £12.7 million, leaving him at 303 million rand per season, which is still a lot because that's around 25 million rand a month.
But it's obviously his agent would calculate and bring in the fact that his brand value would increase even further. He'll get bigger money on endorsements. So in fact, he'd probably make far more money now. He's with a real team now, as we've said earlier. But listen, just a quick one. This Australian guy you spoke about where he says he'll go move up and down the order, right?
Yes.
It got me thinking about there's been a complaint about the low rate of runs on those pitches. They're all drop-in pitches in the USA. And they're scoring like at 4 runs and over in T20 cricket where you should get about 8 runs and over, if not 10.
Yeah, apparently the players are struggling to adapt to the conditions that side.
I hope it doesn't stay that way because you can't play T20 cricket like Test cricket. They might as well just finish a Test match there. I remember in the first World Cup South Africa played in '92. If you got 220 in 50 overs, or was it? Yeah, that was a fantastic score. Those days are long gone. Yeah.
That said, I'll have more in the next hour for SAFM Sport. I'm Doing Kapere.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, as always, let's get to Mark. We're going to get Makwe Masilela in just a moment or so. Here's a question from Kathy in Peter Maritzburg. Happy birthday, Ashraf. Thank you so much for that. Wish the food prices would go lower with any drops in fuel price. Food, fuel. What a lovely gift that would be to all of us. I agree with you. You know what? Isn't it amazing that there doesn't seem to be a clear plan regarding when food prices go up, they say, well, it's because of fuel, and then when the fuel prices go down, well, the food prices just never go down. Yeah, I wish there was like it was pegged nationally, certain foods, and there's a barometer, and they keep them as low as possible. Okay, Makwe Masilela, as always, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Good talking to you. Let's start with an update on the trading from Momentum Metropolitan.
Afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to your listeners. The guys continued to show resilience, with most business units continue to deliver robust earnings, and the pleasing performance, Ashraf, was supported by their continuation of favorable mortality experience, good investment income. Remember, these premiums get to be invested in the markets, and they recorded a positive investment variance, and that was due to a reduction when it comes to the yield curve, and their present value of the new business premiums up 20%, and this growth was enhanced by the reduction when it comes to the discount rate used to calculate the present value of premiums. But the recurring premiums, Ashraf, are down 15%, and assets under management when it comes to Momentum Wealth up 14%, with the health members under administration up a mere 2%.
Okay, and then you have some local and global markets, right?
Yes, the latest soft U.S. manufacturing data revived the bets for the Fed to cut rates sooner, but it also, Ashraf, raised concerns about the potential drag when it comes to other economies. So market participants will continue to weigh concerns about the health of the U.S. economy against stronger expectations for early Fed policy easing. And this mixed picture suggests that investors may be waiting for more data, such as that Friday crucial jobs figures from the U.S., and that is for more clues about the outlook when it comes to interest rates. And as much as it is expected that the European Central Bank will cut rates this Thursday, the slight improvement that we've seen on Friday when it comes to the Eurozone inflation continues to be a concern, and there's still hopes that our country will emerge from coalition talks with a market-friendly government. Unfortunately, our Q1 GDP fell 0.1% as load shedding and weak demand weighed heavily when it comes to our mining, manufacturing, and construction sectors, noting that expectations were for a 0.1% increase. And you look into our household spending, which makes up almost 60% of our GDP, managed to just go up by a mere 0.1%. As consumers continue to be under pressure. And we've just seen another election shocker, that is the Indian current Prime Minister party is set to lose its majority when it comes to the election results, and oil prices continue to be under pressure as OPEC Plus decided to increase supply as from October, and that is in an environment where demand has already shown signs of weaknesses. Brent crude is down 0.8% at $77 a barrel. And after yesterday's 1% rise, the yellow metal is drifting lower as traders are waiting for U.S. job numbers on Friday, and that is for clues on future interest rates path. We see the yellow metal is down 1.2% at 2,321. Platinum is down 1.3% at 1,010. The Dow is up 0.1%, S&P doing the opposite, down 0.1%. The DAX is down 0.5%, FTSE down 0.1%, CAC is down 0.2%. With the JSE down a whooping 0.9%. Our resources are down almost 3%, financials down 1%, but our industrials are up 0.2%, and the rand has weakened almost 1% against the US dollar. It's now at 18.67 and 23.80 to the pound, and 20.26 to the euro.
Okay, and that's it. We will talk again tomorrow. Thanks for that, Makwe Masilela. We'll have another market update that is coming up in another hour's, 45 minutes or just after that or so. Right. Okay, let's move on to another important issue. We'll chat, by the way, to Stephen Friedman, I think, after 5 to get a further analysis on the elections at the IEC. But for now, this is very election related. The ANC's National Executive Committee were due to be held. Their meeting was due to be held today. That's been postponed to Thursday. Let's understand what the reasoning behind all of that is with Samkelo Maseko, who's SABC News reporter. Samkelo, good chatting to you. You're live on the National Pulse.
Very good afternoon to you and to the listeners.
Thank you. Right. So what's happened? Meeting today, meeting Thursday?
The ANC's National Executive Committee will convene on Thursday to look at the various options before the governing party when it comes to the formulation of government within the country. We do know that yesterday at Inanda Golf Club in Houghton, the ANC's negotiating team led by its Secretary General and senior leaders within the party did meet with the Patriotic Alliance of Gayton Mackenzie, did meet with the Economic Freedom Fighters. They've also held some meetings with the negotiating team of the Democratic Alliance to try and thresh out how a coalition government with any of these political formations would work. They are also anticipating to engage with the Inkatha Freedom Party of Vilongosina Shabisa, who they have also said that they are not just only negotiating on the basis of national government, they are also looking at the various metros where the party has some considerable number of seats, for instance, like eThekwini municipality, like Ekurhuleni, like the city of Johannesburg as well.
So what do you think, what's the reason for the postponement? Just too much other work or other factors have come into play?
The postponement was mainly because the ANC's negotiating team ran up until the late hours yesterday in negotiating and discussing with other political formations on how these coalitions would work. They then had to conclude and compile a report, which was then tabled this afternoon in the ANC's National Working Committee meeting, which is currently taking place at the ANC headquarters in Johannesburg. Then that particular report will then be compiled. There will be recommendations to the ANC's National Executive Committee, which will sit on Thursday. So essentially tomorrow, which would be Wednesday, the party will still meet some other political formations, fine-tune their report to the ANC's National Executive Committee, which will then ultimately take a decision on which of the political formations the ANC will go with, or they will opt for a minority government where the ANC governments on a minority basis and other political formations like the DA may choose to abstain, not vote, not put up a candidate, which will put the ANC in pole position. So you may not rule out the fact that a minority government may be an avenue the ANC would choose in order to have stability within government and also not to be clustered with the views of other political formations like the EFF, which at times decides in the morning that they want to remove this particular president. They're no longer voting with you. They have now decided to vote with another political formation. Hence, you've seen instability in various municipalities and also some of the issues and discrepancies the DA and dissatisfaction the DA may have with the EFF being in government. Hence, they dubbed the ANC EFF coalition as doomsday, knowing very well some of the arrangements they, as the DA, agreed to when they were in a voting agreement with the Economic Freedom Fighters in Ekurhuleni, in Johannesburg, and other municipalities as well.
Now, do you have any idea, being close to the action, where the ANC's leanings are?
I can't tell you where the ANC is leaning on or be part of a bandwagon of people saying ANC must go with the DA. What I will definitely tell you is that the ANC is caught between a rock and a hard place. If they decide to go left, which is NKEFF, that will be disastrous to investor confidence within the country. But the ANC is in a crisis today electorally because of those very same investor-friendly confidence motions or policies that they may be pushing, which has ultimately alienated them from their core base within the country. But if they choose to go right with the Democratic Alliance, that would rupture the ANC. It would be the biggest ideological split within the party since the breakaway of the PAC, because all other breakaways have been about personalities and people being dissatisfied within the ANC or ultimately being expelled. But if they were to go with the DA, it would lead to an ideological split since the biggest since the PAC, where those who are left within the ANC would choose to go to the MK, to the EFF, or sit at home, and the moderates within the ANC will choose to go with the DA. They don't have that mass appeal as those who are perceived as the leftists within the organization.
I know you got to go, so just in 30 seconds, Pali Lahotla, the former statistician general, yesterday made the point that if the ANC goes the DA route, it would in effect mark the death of the ANC down the line.
He is not telling lies. It is ultimately the truth. If the ANC goes with the DA, it's the death of the ANC. But also, let's not focus on the ANC. It will be the death of the Democratic Alliance as well, as the Conservatives within the DA would move further towards the Freedom Front Plus, where the DA has been able to regain some considerable amount of lost ground to the Freedom Front Plus in this particular election. So if the ANC and DA go together, it is the ultimate death of the two biggest political formations within the country.
Oh, goodness, I would love to be part of having a seat at that table of those negotiations, I can tell. And I'm sure you want to be in the same boat. Samkelo, thanks for your time. I know you have a TV appointment to get to in a moment. Much appreciated. Samkelo Maseko, the SABC News reporter. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I mean, really, and let me just throw this out to you from an audience perspective. I mean, knowing what you know, just strip your thoughts away from, ideological preferences, because we all may have that. But seriously, what is right for South Africa in terms of what was just said? As Samkelo says, if the ANC and DA comes together, there's a good chance both will shed enough support over a period to mark the death of both of them. If they stay away from each other, business believes that the country will be destroyed anyway if they go the route of EFF as well as the MK. Can they go the route of EFF then and, the IFE without the MK, for example? Or is the government of national unity where beyond a certain threshold, as Ibrahim Fakir said yesterday, listen out to that podcast, by the way. It's available. You can check it up on our SFM radio website, but also we've also put it up on our social media platforms, on Twitter in particular, right? Check that out, because as he has suggested, that maybe at a certain threshold, he said 10%, but the EFF's got just below. But let's say at 9 or 8%, every party 8 and above gets represented in a type of unity where they're not actually married to each other ideologically, which is what a coalition would do. They'd be forced to somehow come together. Let's get further comments on the elections. Here's Anonymous first calling up. Hi, Anonymous.
Ashraf, I want to say happy birthday to you and many more returns. I hope Auntie Jamila cooks something nice for you. My birthday is tomorrow.
We're going to a restaurant, so she's not cooking, actually. Okay, go ahead. Thanks for that. Thanks for the birthday wish.
Tomorrow.
Appreciate it. Right.
I share the same birthday as you. In the same month as you.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. Happy birthday to
My
you
birthday
in
is
advance.
tomorrow.
Okay, in advance. Happy
and
birthday.
How young, may I ask, are you?
We don't answer that. That's asking like who you voted for. You know what I'm saying? Who you voted for and what's the coalition agreement. Let's move on. Elections.
Okay.
Did you want to say anything?
Okay, I just want to talk about the election. I went to the Everside school in my town in Verulam, and I observed there was the MK party that was there with the candidates, campaigning and taking photographs and everything. So I asked them if there were 22, I don't know how many million voters, new registration, the new registration voters that were registered, and why is the system still the same? We have the same classroom, the same everything, and this year it was worse because the senior citizens had to have 2 rows of chairs to sit on. It's not like before we used to just walk in. We couldn't walk in anymore because there were much more people than we expected.
What is the response? I mean, who did you ask? The IEC? What is the response? What was the response?
Hello, I can hardly hear you, Ashraf.
What was the response when you asked them?
No, they just didn't say. They just recorded my voice and they just didn't say anything. They said just be patient. That's all that the MK party said.
All right, just be patient. You got the message. Thanks for that call and nice birthday wish and happy birthday for tomorrow. Lungisani in Durban. Hi.
Hi, afternoon. I wanted to comment on the other callers' comments. he said the EFF and the MK would make a division in South Africa.
Yeah.
I was wondering how can you say that about MK? Because I don't think MK has ever done or said anything that EFF would usually say, which are more of racism. I was wondering where is he coming from with what he said.
Well, I mean, he said a lot of things, right? As you know, he spoke about Johan Rupert's.
He did say MK would bring a lot of division in South Africa. How does that have to do with MK?
Well, I can't answer for him or for MK.
Yes,
isn't
I know,
it? Yeah.
I know. I was wondering if you can put that online on other callers, because I don't know. Most people have that strong hate for Jacob Zuma. I don't know why is that.
Well, look, I mean, I'll say this much, and I don't have the actual words with me from yesterday, but coming out of the court case yesterday, the one to remove Jacob Zuma as the president of the MK party, some of the words are pretty strong, eh? I'm just saying to you, just think about that. Some of the words are pretty strong, and they were not necessary, if you think about it, because it's the type of words with each other that sows division. So I'm not speaking for that call. I can't speak on behalf of him. But I'm saying people listen to words, and therefore those words then suggest certain things to a person and in government too, right? Thanks for that call. Okay, there's another. We're going to get to Polokwane. I did ask you generally, I mean, a general statement every day. What drives the national agenda? You can answer that. So is that the name of the person? Active Season in Polokwane? Okay, got that. Hello?
Ashraf.
Yeah. Yes, hello.
Look, South African voters have rejected EFF and MK. Numbers do not
not
lie.
MK. The ANC, you mean?
No, I'm talking about MK party. If people wanted the MK party would have had more than 50% of votes. For the fact that the votes of MK party and EFF combined do not make 50 plus 1%, it means South African voters have rejected both parties. So it will be very wrong for the ANC to force the two parties through our throat. We voted for the ANC, having faith in the ANC. Alternatively, the second biggest political party that has been voted by South African voters is the DA. That is a clear, simple mandate to the government, to the ruling party, to say the only party that you need to look at is the Democratic Party, because it's number one and number two. So the ANC must never ever try to force DA. The MK and the EFF through our vote. We have rejected them through our vote.
Okay, so let me ask you. So here's the question. Let's say, and I hear you, right? Let's say the ANC does a deal with MK and EFF. They don't hear you. They don't hear you talk in this conversation. They go ahead and do it anyway. What do you do as an ANC supporter?
Yes, that is where I wanted to go. But let me start by saying I totally reject the notion that if the ANC and the DA go into a coalition, it will mean the end of both the parties. I want to say it is totally wrong. And in answering you, it would actually be the end of the ANC if they go into coalition with MK and the EFF, because the people of South Africa, they were they were very straight and honest with their vote to say, we do not want the MK. We don't want a feudalism in South Africa through MK. We don't want a disrespect. People who do not respect the laws of the country. We don't want the arrogance of the EFF. We don't want the borderless South Africa. We don't want foreigners in South Africa. And we have said that through our vote. So I want to say, it is only if the ANC could go with the EFF and the MK that it will be the end of the ANC, and everyone in South Africa will go for the DA.
Okay, well, there you are. So you're saying, okay, got that call. Listen to that one. According to that caller, we say ANC does a deal with the EFF, the DA. The one comment is the DA will die, the ANC will die. Here's the caller saying that, in fact, the others, they'll all die. Sure, the ANC will die as well. Very, very confusing. I hear you. Thanks for that call. Let's pick up another caller. Is it Omar in Pretoria? Hello.
Hello, Ashraf. My name is Uma from Pretoria.
Yes, good to hear from you. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to continue from where the guy left off. Ne?
Yeah.
I still feel we gave ANC a mandate.
Right.
So if they want to do any changes, I don't know how feasible this will be. They need to consult with the electorate. Again, check with us which way do we want to move.
Look,
Whether
I like
DA
that, but how do they
Yes.
consult? What's the process?
That is
How do
why
they do
I'm
it?
saying I don't know how feasible that will be, but I think that will be a fair way of doing it. Because surely they cannot just push things down our throat because they are in a quagmire or, they are in some stuck space. That will be very unfair because we went all out and then voted for them. So somewhere, somehow, they must reconsult us again.
Okay, I'll tell you what, I have a view on that, and I'll express that opinion just after the news. Okay, so listen out for that. Thanks for that call, Uma. Let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greco's.
Thank you, Ashraf. IC speaks on objections and new rules on reporting lost shipping containers. Good day to you. The IEC's Deputy Chief Electoral Officer, Maseko Shaburi, says all those who submit objections to the Commission would have received a response before the announcement of the results. A number of political parties had called on the Commission to delay the announcement of the results, which were eventually released on Sunday. The Commission had received 579 objections. Shaburi says when the Commission released the results, there were no outstanding objections, so there was no reason to delay the announcement.
Everyone who took the pain to raise an objection with the Commission would have received a reason of what the Commission did with their objection. Where they agreed with the objection, the Commission would have told them the steps that were going to be taken. Where the Commission rejected those objections, the Commission would have informed the person of the reasons for the rejection.
The number of people who died as a result of floods in the Eastern Cape has risen to 10. This after the body of a female who went missing at the Rocklands area was found today. Police have also identified the 7 other people who died in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. 2 people also died in East London, with 1 person still missing. Police spokesperson Sandra Janse van Rensburg.
In KwaZulu, 4 deceased persons were Aluta Brown, Ndomiso Boysen, Tamsanka Plaatjies, and Tondekolo Jonas. Abonita Adams drowned in Kamesh, while Clive Noah from Kariga also died due to the excessive flooding. 1 person, Siselo Lesipo, from warmer location, also lost his life.
Curious onlookers are being urged to steer clear of the disaster-hit areas at Tongaat, north of Durban, as it's hampering aid efforts. At least 10 people have been killed and scores injured or displaced as a tornado ripped through the region, leaving a trail of destruction. Now, with the possibility of rain this weekend, the emphasis is on providing shelter for the victims. Nazir Sarak is the chairperson of the Community Emergency Response Team.
So people could just stay away from driving around disaster areas. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of disaster areas where people are just driving through, filming, etc., which is basically congesting relief efforts. The second request is basically get into an organization and find out and work through the organization exactly what the needs are. So in Tongaat, you do have quite a few. You've got the Tongaat Child Welfare, you've got the Tongaat Hindu Association, you've got CERT. They are coordinating some relief efforts in and around the Tongaat area.
A case against the Matlosana municipal manager in the northwest and her sister has been postponed to August. The pair appeared in the Klerksdorp Magistrates Court following investigations by the Hawks, which resulted in their arrest. They're charged with theft, fraud, corruption and money laundering. The municipal manager was granted bail of 20,000 rand. Her sister was released on 10,000 rand bail. Hawks Gauteng spokesperson Lloyd Ramoba.
A case was registered at Klerksdorp Police Station in May 2024. It was reported that tender irregularities amounting to over 3 million rand were identified within the municipality coffers. The Hawks investigations has implicated Lisiho Siametso, who is the current manager of the Matlosana municipality, as having benefited from the stolen municipality funds. Amongst other flagged transactions were funds that were reportedly used to purchase a house through a family trust account, which the municipal manager and their sister are trustees.
Shipping organisations have welcomed new rules on reporting containers lost at sea, introduced by the International Maritime Organisation. Under the changes, captains are obliged to immediately report containers overboard to other ships, the nearest coastal state and the country under which the vessel is flagged. The BBC's Richard Howell has more.
More than 90% of the world's cargo is moved across the seven seas in shipping containers. The big steel boxes, about 12 metres long, can carry more than 30 tonnes of freight. If one goes overboard, it becomes a potentially serious hazard to other vessels. A spokesman for the World Shipping Council said the new rules would make shipping lanes safer and help to protect the environment. The biggest ships can carry more than 20,000 containers per voyage. In recent years, it's thought more than 2,000 have been lost annually, often due to bad weather and rough seas.
Top story. The IEC's Deputy Chief Electoral Officer says all those who submitted objections to the Commission would have received a response before the announcement of the election results. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Close.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is queuing towards Crown Interchange. The N12 eastbound in Boksburg has a crash reported on the off-ramp to Rondebolt Road. In Midrand, the N1 northbound is queuing towards New Road, and Lever Road has a crash reported near Azalea Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before Spaghetti Junction. Chris Hani Road has a crash reported at the N2 highway, and Phoenix Highway has a crime scene reported at Trade Centre Junction. The road has been closed. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Koeberg Interchange. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is slow moving at Voortrekker Road. And Hilberson Drive northbound in Parow is queuing towards the N1 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The Chill Zone with Bertha Charuma.
When do you know this is not good for me? This is not healthy at all.
One of the things that we often talk about is you've got to look at your ratio of good times versus bad times and look at the extent of which the bad times are. All relationships will have certain ups and downs, but you shouldn't be spending more time crying. You shouldn't be spending more time sad, unhappy because of the relationship than you do happy. People tend to focus too much on the good and ignore the bad, and that's the problem.
Linda Yende joining us, relationship coach.
Bertha Charuma, Fridays 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
We'll chat to Stephen Friedman shortly. And as always, what is it for you that drives the national pulse today? What are the big issues that have dominated the national psyche and it has an impact on what you feel about South Africa? It changes every single day. The general theme is the elections and what comes out of it. But you tell me what you think. Is it the weather? Certainly looking at many parts of, the Free State and Lesotho, it's absolutely in Northern Cape, like really, really winter has finally arrived. Oh, yeah, the question we had from Uma. So here's my thought, Uma. I hear what you're saying. You're saying that what needs to happen is the ANC, for example, is to come back to you and say, we couldn't get beyond 40%. Now, who do we deal with? Now, I'm in agreement with you. The practicality, of course, at this point in time is impossible. The closest they can get to is branches. I don't know whether they can get to all the branches in time and then have a vote and election. I don't think that's possible right now. But in principle, I agree with you. One of the things I've said before is that when you vote, therefore, your one vote is the party of your choice. The second vote should be the party you want your party to be in alliance with if they don't get to 50+1, right? Now, that's not going to happen. And I just wonder, some countries do this. They have an election runoff. And I tend to favor that. That's a personal opinion, which is what would happen then is if a party gets 50%+1, that party wins the election, hands down. That's been happening in the previous 6 elections in our country. If a party does not get it, like now 40%, what happens? The top 2 remains in the race. So in this case, it would be the ANC and the DA that would remain in the race. All the other parties would drop off completely. And let's say in a month's time, they'd have an election runoff, right? And then all of us, including you, and never mind who you voted for before, you now have only 2 choices. One of those 2 choices are the party you're going to vote for. And they'll do so till they get to 50% or 50%+1. That's what I like, and I always wished that were the case. Hasn't happened for many reasons. Let's talk about, maybe I'll ask Stephen Friedman that, in fact, because we're going to talk about the IEC and coalitions and maybe this issue too with Professor Stephen Friedman, who's a research professor at the University of Johannesburg. Prof. Friedman, Stephen, good chatting to you. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf.
Thank you for your time. Right. So two things we're going to talk about. One is just your perspective of the IEC's delivery of South Africa's election. What do you make of it?
Well, look, there were obviously glitches. There were obviously problems. They could obviously have done better. And it is a bit of a puzzle to me, having worked for the IEC way back in 1994, that things were so uneven in the sense that, at some polling stations, you were out in 5 minutes. In other polling stations, people were queuing at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so there's obviously a management issue there that needs to be sorted out. But I think it's very important to stress that despite all that, and if we ignore rather silly conspiracy theories which have no evidence behind it, we have an IEC which is doing its job, which is concerned to make sure that the votes of South Africans are reflected accurately, that doesn't favour one party over another, and that's a very important strength. And I don't think we should ever throw the baby out with the bathwater. Of course, we should insist that the IEC fixes the glitches, but just remember, as one indication, that there have been all sorts of challenges from political parties who've gone to the courts to challenge the IEC. So far, if you include cases that have gone up to the Constitutional Court, the IEC has won every single one. So clearly the courts believe that the IEC is running free and fair elections, and I think we should value that.
Yeah, and therefore one thing is errors at a voting district, which I can understand can happen, right? But the other is, accusations of fraud and downright vote rigging. What do you make of that level of, far-fetched accusations?
No, it's unfortunately part of the trend, around the world. If people didn't vote for me, it must have been because it was rigged. And then you ask them, well, how do you know it was rigged? And you get ridiculous claims like, well, the computer went down for 15 minutes and our party must have been ahead. If you want to claim that there's election fraud, you have to have very clear evidence. And no evidence has been presented that there was any fraud at all. There were glitches, there were errors, but there was no fraud that would stand up in a court that I'm aware of.
And yet that many parties have been signatories to laying a whole series of complaints lodging to the IEC. And the IEC, we spoke to them earlier on, they said they've responded to every complaint, not necessarily to their satisfaction, but they have responded to that. And now they've got 3 days to take the issue to the Constitution, to the Electoral Court. I mean, you have any thoughts about whether that's going to happen in some cases, or they'll just let it go?
Well, in some cases, not others. As I say, when people start putting up stuff on Facebook saying, well, we had 55% when the computers went down, despite the fact that all the evidence suggests that they had 12 or 13%, the Electoral Court's just going to throw that out. So, if they don't want to waste their money, unless they have very, very serious evidence which can stand up in a court of law, they'd be very advised not to go to the Electoral Court.
What do you then make, again, of those same parties, not so much in terms of their concerns, but, in this case, headed by former President Jacob Zuma, because it allowed him to effectively head up that press conference, asking for a postponement of the announcement, and then effectively suggesting or else, like, don't provoke us. What do you make of that?
Well, it really creates the impression, as somebody put it, that essentially your attitude is, if things don't go my way, then I'm just going to wreck the whole show. There's a very clear procedure for how complaints are dealt with. There's a very clear procedure for when the results are announced. It's one of this country's strengths that the rule of law matters in our elections, that the Electoral Commission sticks to the rules. that it doesn't allow itself to be bullied by people who say, you must change the rules because we don't like the result that the rules produced. So it's very important that the IEC hold the line on these issues, which fortunately they did. And if the IEC does hold the line on these issues, the courts will support them.
Okay, to turn it around, waiting for a few more days just to quell the type of concerns and anger that parties have rightfully or wrongfully, would that be a train smash?
No, but, well, it would, yes. It would be a train smash. Because what it would do, it would send a signal that you can bully the Electoral Commission. It would send a signal that if you stamp your foot, hold a press conference and say, we don't like the way the rules work, then they'll change the rules for you. And once you do that, then they'll have more demands, and they'll have more demands after that. And then we won't have free and fair elections anymore.
Okay. If I can move on then, to some of the other issues around coalitions, but you may have heard my opening comments about an election runoff, as happens in many other countries where, the top two then contest a second round of elections. What are your thoughts on that?
No, it only happens, Ashraf, in countries which have an entirely different electoral system to us. You can't have runoffs in our electoral system. Yeah. So you have them in countries which have direct presidential elections. In other words, you vote for an individual as president. And countries which have constituency systems. France in Europe is an obvious example. So that if you don't get a majority of votes in your constituency, you have to narrow it down, as you said in your intro, to two parties. You can't do it in our system, and I don't think we should change our system. The reason we shouldn't change our system is that one of the strengths of our system is that it gives a very wide range of South Africans a voice in Parliament. If one is to go to some kind of constituency system in this country, then you're going to have one or two parties in Parliament, not the range we have at the moment, and that means a lot of people are going to feel that they don't have a voice. And equally importantly, you would have a situation which you always have in constituency systems, in which a party without a majority of the vote lands up with a massive majority in Parliament. So that the majority of people are really not governed by the people they voted for. So, the system we've got has drawbacks like the messiness we're seeing at the moment. But, a lot of South Africans would lose out if we change the system.
Okay, I think it's a good point that you make, because in that case, those two parties in that runoff would then land up in Parliament, and I think many of the other parties would fall away, and that's not the case in our country. I mean, the other side is like, can you imagine us without all the drama right now? I mean, that's part of what we are. That's the national pulse. We don't want to miss that. Let me ask you then about the drama. What are your thoughts about, the coalition choices or government forming choices awaiting, at least the top four parties?
Look, what I find interesting, a lot of the other stuff. Look, I think, first of all, it's worth mentioning something which perhaps hasn't been noticed enough, which is that the fact that the MK party got 14%, which was very unexpected, has closed off a whole lot of options. So there are a lot of options for coalition governments which are not possible because of that. So, for example, there was a lot of talk before the election of an ANC-IFP coalition. That's obviously out of the question. They don't have anywhere near 50%. An ANC-EFF coalition was sort of presented as evil by some and the opposite by others. Well, they don't have 50% between them either. So if they wanted to govern together, they'd have to bring in other parties. So it's narrowed down the options a lot. And one of the results of that is that it's going to be more difficult to form coalitions. And because of that, we've had a couple of ideas appear which nobody was talking about before the election, which are not strict coalition ideas. And they've been quite widely reported, so people might be aware of them. The one which seems to be mainly punted by the ANC at the moment is this idea of a government of national unity. And the difference between that and a coalition is that coalitions, you have to negotiate between the parties have to agree to them, with a government of national unity. If you have a particular share of the vote, you get seats in government, whether people associate with you or not. So that's the one option. And then the other one, which seems to be coming out of the DA, is this idea of, in effect, a minority government. I mean, the technical term is confidence and supply, which sounds terribly technical, as I say, but it basically means, to be quite concrete, that, I mean, in this case, it would be an agreement between the ANC and the DA. The DA would not join the government, but it would vote for the government in exchange for various powers that it would have. So what is being talked about is that the DA would control Parliament, it would choose the Speaker, it would have a veto over various appointments, and so on. And you do get that in some countries as well. So those, I'd have to be quite honest, the government of national unity is quite an interesting and quite a fair proposal in the sense that everybody gets, everybody whose parties get a particular share of that gets a seat. My reading at the moment is that it's not a starter, that the parties won't go for it.
They won't. So why wouldn't they? You got 30 seconds to answer that. Yeah.
Well, they won't because they can't stand each other, basically. The DA won't join if the EFF and MK is there. If the EFF won't join if the DA is there. MK won't join if Cyril Ramaphosa is there. So basically, you can't have a government of national unity when there's no national unity.
When there's no unity, yeah. I mean, the flip side of that is you how do you have a coalition with people you also immensely dislike, and that appears to be the case. And as has been suggested, whichever way the ANC goes could mark the death knell of one party or two parties or more. It's a conundrum. We'll leave it to you to answer that some other time because I think none of us really knows. Prof. Stephen Friedman, I appreciate your time as always. Thank you for that input. But you, from the audience point of view, well, you can certainly share your opinions. And you've heard that, government of national unity, the ANC going with which party, Party A, Party B, Party C, or to go with that confidence and supply. That sounds like a production line term that I don't quite understand. Would you go for that? That means parties agreeing to work together without tying themselves up ideologically. But I don't know. You may know. You know better. Where does it work? Where has it worked with all these suggestions? Either way, the country needs guidance. Who will provide the wisdom that will get these parties, who none of us feels confident enough to give them 50% plus one, to now have the confidence to work together to form a government on behalf of South Africa.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's what real clients say about OUTsurance.
My name is Alan. I'm 71 years of age and I live in Douglasdale. I'm paying 554 Rand a month for my 2022 Nissan Magnite.
Want a car insurance premium that'll blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote. It's quick, it's easy, and it could save you hundreds of rands every month. Here's Amy.
To anyone who has not reached out to OUTsurance, what are you doing? Reach out today.
Blow your mind, not your paycheck. SMS out to 30754 and see for yourself why OUTsurance was voted Best Car Insurer 2023 by the Star and Pretoria newsreaders. Here's Yusuf.
It just shows that OUTsurance is top of the tops when it comes to insurers.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
The clock is on a downhill towards the world's most prestigious games, with a wide variety of exhilarating action such as aquatics, athletics, gymnastics, boxing, breakdancing, football, and many more. The 6th of June marks 50 days to the Olympics. The world's elite athletes are all eyeing a podium finish. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. Experience the Olympic Games Paris 2024 from Friday 26 July until Sunday 11 August. Live on SABC TV channels and SABC radio stations. SABC Sport is the official broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Lots of people want to talk, as in call in. You can do that. 86 let me get that right. 086 000 2032. And there are many WhatsApp text and voice notes. And you can continue in terms of what are the big issues that moves or drives the National Pulse today. 0614 104 107. So much talk about the coalitions. I think we should ask Chat GTP or AI and say, come on, can you suggest a way forward? And I say that intentionally so because my next guest is Doreen Mokoena, who's the CEO of CyberSec Clinique. Doreen, appreciate your time. Hi.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very well.
Good. Now, we're talking to you because you've got this big challenge not to sort out the coalition problems in our country, thank goodness for that, but to talk to us about AI, artificial intelligence, and certainly to give us some guidance for many people who've heard about the jargon, who don't quite know, A, what it is, but very importantly, how can they use that as an enabler in their businesses and their careers, whatever it is that they need as a tool?
So AI is actually, one of the emerging technologies, not really emerging because AI has been in existence for a very long time. You can actually remember from the days of the Matrix, that was actually AI-generated models. So we've had AI for years now, almost 20 to about 25 years, and a lot of people don't know how they can actually leverage the power, of AI and machine learning to boost their businesses. So, there's this discourse that AI is going to take jobs. AI is just making things easier and better for us. So AI basically just automates your daily operations depending on how you integrate all your systems in one place. But AI for good is something that we have, and I urge most businesses to actually, integrate it as part of their daily lives.
So practically, right, how does AI become an enabler to solve problems that we have in our businesses, in our organizations?
So, for instance, let's just say you run a cybersecurity operations center, and all the detection and monitoring of all the vulnerabilities is actually done by AI, because right now what we're trying to look for is accurate results. If you can just go back to the elections, we look at the models that the CSIR use. They use a bunch of AI models and and machine learning. So it makes our life better in terms of predictive analysis, and predictive models. So we are off to a good start. It's just that people need to understand, the good part of it and the bad part of it, and what security frameworks they can actually enable so that their businesses, do not have security breaches and incidents.
So let's talk about the good things. I really want to focus on solutions here. I mean, amongst the good things, interesting, you gave the example of the election, right? Where I think amongst certainly the CSR, which SABC tied up with as a partner for the elections, they were able to predict the results after having only 5%. That's it, 5% of the vote allowed them to predict the results, and they were right. It's just quite incredible, right? So what else can people do in using AI?
So AI can actually be used, within various. In fact, all industries can use AI. We have seen mines, use AI for collision detection, where they have less, less casualties within mines. Even in the healthcare center, in the healthcare industry, they use AI. So I've noticed that most healthcare hospitals, and research companies use AI for, computer-aided diagnosis, whereby they just run the scan, across your body and they will tell you what's wrong with you. But that part of AI, we also have an issue whereby it's being corrupted, whereby there are bad actors, which basically corrupt the model or the algorithm. And as a result, it will return lower accuracy results for black patients as opposed to white patients. So there's also that thing of, training the AI to be biased, whereby it gives you incorrect data analysis or incorrect results. Yeah.
So just as a last thought, a person listening who stayed away from AI right now, and if they want to now contemplate using it, particularly in terms of business development, what would be their first step? What should they do?
So, actually, this is getting me excited because I spoke to startups earlier during the day that they can use AI for operations. So in normal businesses, you've got your executive level. AI can assist you, in your operations. For instance, it can assist you in drafting policies. It can assist you in doing your induction models. It can actually assist you, especially when you're doing predictive work, where you need to run models and they need to give you an answer. For example, like what happened with the CSIR. So if you run a result-oriented company, I would really suggest you use AI. You use an AI-enabled technology.
Okay, we're going to have lots more AI conversations all throughout the year on this show because we understand the importance of being innovative in terms of what we do. So, Doreen, thanks for your time. Much appreciated. Doreen McQueen.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. CEO of CyberSec Clinique. There's a few voice notes I want to pick up before we get to the news. I mean, here's one that should get us thinking. In fact, no, that voice note is just frozen just for a sec. We need AI to assist us with that. Hopefully we'll sort that out in just a moment. Let's see if there's another that we can get to. No? Okay, we'll sort that out in just a moment. There are lots of questions about, here's another one, Ashraf, the ANC-DA coalition. Well, happy birthday, firstly, from Mutero. Much appreciated. The DA-ANC coalition might indeed become the death of both parties, as some people claim. However, what harm is there if that ANC-DA partnership succeeds? Okay, got that. You think about that. We'll pick up further conversations on that in a moment. Let's get the news headlines now. It's 5:30. Here's Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. A quick look at the headlines. Some mine workers at Sibanye-Stillwater's Kwezi shaft in Rustenburg in the northwest have lamented the employer for failing to pay the employee share ownership scheme for Kroondal employees. The IEC's Deputy Chief Electoral Officer says all those who submitted objections to the Commission would have received a response before the announcement of the election results. And trade unions in Nigeria have suspended a general strike by public sector workers. More on that story and other news at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
In Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Germiston has a crash before Geldenhuys interchange. The M1 southbound is queuing through Crown interchange towards Boysons. Glenove Road in Houghton Estate is slow moving at 5th Street. And Lever Road in Midrand has a crash reported near Azalea Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound is slow moving towards Spaghetti Junction. Chris Hani Road westbound is queuing at the N2 highway. Umgeni Road is slow moving at Smison Kwanyana Road. Phoenix Highway has a crime scene reported at Trade Centre Junction. The road's been closed, as well as Phoenix Highway being slow-moving between Rockford Drive and Chris Hani Road. And then there's some congestion in that Fairbreeze area. In the Eastern Cape, snowfall in the region is definitely going to lead to many road closures as well as diversions, so please expect very slow-moving traffic. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is slow-moving towards Meway, the M5 southbound is slow-moving towards Krumbum Road, the N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound is slow-moving towards the N2 highway, and the N1 outbound is slow-moving towards Okavango Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khabele.
Right, so yesterday we had the South African cricket team playing. What's the big stories today?
The big story this hour is in tennis. Novak Djokovic has pulled out of the French Open due to a knee injury sustained during his fourth round yesterday. The 37-year-old underwent an MRI scan today and has been forced to withdraw from his quarterfinal against Casper Ruud. This also obviously casts doubt on his participation in Wimbledon, and as a result of his withdrawal, it means that there will be new French Open men's champions. It also means that Yannick Sinner will become world number one for the first time on Monday. Then third seed Coco Gauff recovered to beat Algebert to advance to the semifinals of the French Open. The 20-year-old showed her maturity to win 4-6, 6-2 and 6-3. And next up, she takes on Iga Swiatek in what promises to be a cracker of a match. In cycling coach Nick Bester has been banned for 15 years after being found guilty by the sport's national body of for sexual grooming and harassment and abuse. A whistleblower reported Bester to Cycling SA about his misconduct involving two young ladies or girls aged 14 and 17 taking place at a school and Bester's home. And now he'll also be expected to pay 80% of Cycling SA's legal costs, who launched a formal investigation. In football, the next fixtures of the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers will undergo tomorrow, and the stakes have been raised ahead of the third match day out of 10 to be played. The first match in this week is in Group H. Namibia who are currently first, will go up against Liberia, who are placed third at the Orlando Stadium in Johannesburg. Meanwhile, Banyana midfielder Kolosa Biyana says that South Africans can expect a much better and more improved performance from Banyana when they take on Senegal tonight. The two nations face off in the second of two international friendly games at 7 p.m. South African time. In the first outing, the clash ended in a 1-1 draw after Ntabiseng Majia had given the visitors the lead before it was cancelled in referee's optional time. Biyana says that it would be a good feeling to return home victorious.
You can expect a better performance, better and much improved performance. Expect us to play at a higher intensity than we did in the first game. Move the ball quicker, be more mobile, and positive result. A win for that game going back home. It would be nice for us. It would be nice also for the new players. So we're definitely going to give our best, and we got to analyze the game. We got to speak about a lot of things. So much improved performance, fix a lot of things, reduce the amount of mistakes that we made, and try and be just quicker on the ball, play forward and score more goals so that we can win the game.
In cricket, India coach Rahul Dravid is set to stand down when his contract expires after the T20 World Cup. Dravid says that he will not reapply for the position after it was advertised by the governing body, the BCCI, last month. The 51-year-old succeeded Ravi Shastri in 2021 and led India to the World Test Championship and 50-over World Cup finals last year, losing to Australia on both occasions. On that note, it is a wrap from my side for SAFM Sport.
Before you end, so Djokovic out of the French Open,
Djokovic is out,
man.
It's sad.
He's interesting because, you had Federer, you had Nadal, and you thought you had the two best two, and you got this guy who was more efficient.
Right.
And effectively, he outdoes both of them, and now he's not.
He's out. It says a lot. Like the first moment I heard that he's pulled out of the French Open, I was just like, my goodness, it just shows that our favorites are growing old.
It shows things change in our country as well. Nothing's ever permanent. That's the bottom line to it. Now we know. Yeah. All right, we'll talk again tomorrow. Yeah.
Righty.
Perfect. There we are.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's talk about the facts and figures, not of the elections, but certainly of the markets, as always, with the Money Web market update. As always, Jimmy Moyaha. Hi, Jimmy.
Good afternoon, Aldrin, and Ashraf, and a very, very happy birthday. I thought I'd get
no
that
wonder voters get confused. Can you just imagine them having 3 ballot sheets and if you can't get this right, then we got problems.
could never get you confused with Aldrin. I think it's just a habit of having spoken to Aldrin for so many months, and you'd think after having spoken to you for as many months as we've been talking that we'd sort of have this out the system.
I'll tell you
especially on your birthday, right?
You need to, once we have coffee together, then you'll know that it's not just the fact that both have A's, right? and just so that people don't get confused, it's ASHRAF. That's the Ashraf, right?
and you look distinctly different too.
I think I do. Go ahead. Let's talk markets.
Yes, talking markets. Lots to unpack today. We're going to be looking at some of the numbers that have come out today. We've got GDP numbers coming out, or that came out earlier today. There was a contraction. Obviously, we're going to look at that. But quite importantly, we're going to take a look at the agricultural side of it, because every Tuesday or every other Tuesday, rather, we have either Agri Tuesdays or Property Tuesdays, and this week is the turn of Agri Tuesday. So I thought I'd speak to AgBiz around the expectations for agricultural production and output and exports, and the numbers that we got for Q1, as well as what it looks like for the rest of the year. I'm going to catch up with Wandile Sihlobo around that. We spoke about the agricultural developments when he and I bumped into each other at NAMPO about 3 weeks ago. So since then, the elections have come out. We've got new data that's come out, and I thought let's touch base with the agricultural space and just see where that puts South Africa for the rest of the year, because it is such a critical component in terms of what drives some of the GDP and some of the job creation in South Africa. We've also got a conversation with Daybreak. We're going to be speaking to them around the developments with regards to their whistleblower litigation. It looks as though those developments are fine, or those troubles are finally behind them. I'm going to catch up with the company's CEO and just see what it means for Daybreak going forward. For those that are unfamiliar with Daybreak, they occupy about 7% of the market share in South Africa in the poultry space. They're a chicken producer, and they are owned by the Public Investment Corporation. So there is lots to dig into there around the impacts of the litigation they were going through and what it means for the business going forward, because they're on a turnaround plan that they've outlined sort of 18 months for. So we're going to speak to them and see how far that is from their perspective and what we can expect to get from them. We also got a couple of updates from the Canal Plus multi-choice stable around that deal. It looks like we're finally going ahead with it at 125 Rand a share. I'm going to speak to an analyst around that and just ask some questions around how the deal could possibly be structured, because as we know, MultiChoice is a broadcaster of significant presence and prominence in South Africa, and there is legislation around foreign ownership of such broadcasting stations in terms of South African law. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at what the deal looks like, how many different structures the deal could take in terms of the permutations, and what agreements would make the regulator happy so that they don't have too much regulatory trouble where it comes to approving the deal from that perspective. So we're going to have a conversation around the multi-choice deal and try and unpack that. But before we get to that, the markets have had another torrid day, which is a little strange because yesterday was a good day. So it looks as though we're back to up and down movements within the markets. And Henko Creer has been keeping an eye on those markets for us throughout the day. He joins me now to just do a quick summary of those markets. Good evening, Henko. Thanks as always for keeping an eye on the markets. Today was not the day to hold resources.
Definitely not, Jimmy. Hello, Jimmy and Ashraf and Tumi, and good evening to all of our listeners. And I must say, yes, you said that today was a really torrid day and it was a red day, and I must say that was worldwide the case. The Dow Jones at this stage is trading 0.2% weaker, the S&P 500 losing 0.4%, and the Nasdaq 0.5% down. And European stocks, they dipped a little bit deeper into the red than the US markets. The DAX finished 1% weaker today, the CAC 40 0.7% down, and the FTSE 100 lost 0.5% today. And here by us, the JSE finished the day 1.2% down, and it closed at a lower level of 76,833 points. The industrial index, curious enough, it finished unchanged after it went up and down the whole afternoon. The financial index lost 1.5%. And the resources index, yes, like you said, Jimmy, not the stocks that you wanted to hold today. The resources index lost 3.2%. Let's have a look at some of the companies that gave better performances today, stronger performances. Those were We Buy Cars, Resilient, and as well as Richmond. They each gained 2.5% today. And then Mass, Hyprop, and Process, each 1.5% stronger, followed by Lightprop, Alphaman, Sirius, and Mondi, which each finished 1% up at the end of the day. On the negative side, Sibanye-Stillwater lost 7.5%, and Karoo, Montauk, and Implats, they were each 5% down. Northern, South 32, and Harmony each lost 4.5%. Spar, Amplats, and ARM 4% weaker at the end of the day. So yes, you can see all of these mining companies contributed to this resources index, which fell by almost 3.5% today. If we have a look at some of the 10 largest companies on the JSE, I mentioned Richmond, which gained 2%. Process, which finished 1.5% stronger, but unfortunately BHP and Glencore, they each lost 2%. If we have a look at the exchange rate, at the moment you'll pay 18 Rand 68 for a US dollar, and the Rand losing about 1% in strength to the US dollar today. Then you'll pay 20 Rand and 33 cents for a euro, 12 Rand 42 for an Australian dollar, and 23 Rand and 88 cents for a pound. On the commodities market, the price of gold is $2,326. Silver is sitting at $29.60. Platinum is trading at $1,000, and palladium's price is $911 an ounce. The price of Brent crude is $77.65 a barrel. And last but not least, the price of a Bitcoin is $69,500, and that is still 1.3 million Rand. Jimmy, that's how the markets performed.
Thank you very much for that update, Henku. We're going to be keeping an eye on some of these market movements. There are certainly some interesting movements to dig into there, especially on the resources side of it. I remember Impala at some point was trading above 100 Rand a share. Now we're back below 90 Rand a share. I wonder if we'll get back to that 50 Rand level that we saw a little earlier in the year. But we'll dig into these and other stories when we come back a little later on. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Thanks for that, Jimmy. Right, let's get into other issues. In fact, lots of conversations and concerns about the just bad weather around the country, but particularly, KZN, the flooding, and we know there was this huge issue of a tornado that hit that area yesterday. We're going to cross to that, get an update on that pretty shortly, okay? Let's get some voice notes in the meantime, and I'll get some callers too.
Hi, I'd like to give a big shout out to Kwena Mabutla. He introduced me to SAFM and I've been hooked since, so I'm thankful for that.
Okay, did you say Kwena? The line's not so great, but Kwena hooked you onto SAFM and introduced you and been hooked ever since. Thank you. I'm glad. And we're going to give you every reason to stay connected to SAFM, and hopefully you listen to this show, The National Pulse, all the time and answer the question daily about what is it that drives the National Pulse. Here's another one about MKIFP.
Hello, Ashraf. I think the most sensible and progressive coalition that I would like to see is between the MK and IFP. For obvious reasons, not for tribal reasons or anything. I think those are the most well-positioned parties that can really make a difference in KZN and perhaps maybe eventually in South Africa, because it seems like we'll be having a coalition government even in the next elections. I don't think they should even be afraid that probably they will be swallowed by the MK, maybe in the local government elections or in the next 5 years. But I think that will be the most sensible coalition for me. And as for Eastern Cape, I am still flabbergasted by their choice. Really, it just doesn't make sense to me. This is Tepiso.
So there you are. Eastern Cape, I think you're talking about an overwhelming victory for the ANC there in a region that has been largely underdeveloped for a long time. As far as your comments about KZN, well, it's a point, isn't it? That I think, certainly, to qualify what you're saying about coalitions, an MK-IFP coalition nationally won't change anything because the numbers are too short, right? But it can work in provincially in KZN. But here's the issue, right? It depends on how the coalition's agreements work. I don't think, and this is just guesswork here, I don't think it'll be a case of, province to province and then national. So you have effectively 10 potential arrangements, but some of them, the ANC doesn't need anybody. We know that. What will happen is the parties will strike a deal nationally and the same thing will filter down provincially, and they may well impact at local government level as well. So you could have changes. So, for example, in Johannesburg, where you've got Al Jamaz, they're with 2 or 3 seats. Their leader is the mayor of Johannesburg with just 2 or 3 seats in the city. That could change. And I'm not saying it will. It could change depending on how the arrangements take place at a macro national level. Naturally, there's no question the big thing that drives the National Pulse every day continues to be, elections and coalitions.
Okay. Hello, Ashraf. David from Alberton. I believe we should not really care what happens to ANC or DA if they merge and make a coalition. We should care about what happens to South Africa and the stability of South Africa and getting South Africa back on track, both economically, socially, and otherwise.
Well, David, I agree with you. What's right and what's the best thing for our country. But you see, analysts, when they talk, they look at when they believe that both the ANC and the DA will implode if they come together, right? Then they're saying that's the reason why they won't come together. But I do agree with you that the broader issue is that will the parties have the will to do what's right for South Africa. Or maybe then this national government of national unity may sound more appealing. Maybe, just maybe, right? Let's get to some of the callers as well, right? Here's the one. DW saying, Ashraf, you say you're just guessing, yet you dispense it as a fact. No, you must hear what I'm saying. I'm saying that's what could happen. Maybe just listen to the words that I've said. I can't even say it will happen. If you ask me now, what exactly will be the coalition agreement? I don't know, and nobody knows that. But I'm saying that's a possibility, that what could happen at national may filter down through and apply everywhere else. It may not happen. So it's a guess, but it's a guess opinion, if you can get that right. Khafildin Benjamin from, I'm not sure where you're from, in fact, but you want to talk about coalitions, right? Go ahead, Khafildin.
Hi, Ashraf. Just one thing first before I continue.
Yeah.
You should get Professor Friedman on the show more frequently. But with regard to the coalitions, Ashraf, I'm a card-carrying ANC member from the Western Cape.
Right.
I've been a member of the ANC for eternity since my political days started.
Mm-hmm.
However, should the ANC go into coalition with the DA, myself and my family, and I think I speak for some of my friends and colleagues, we will basically tear up and cut up our cards because it would be unfathomable to have the party that we have supported so long to go into a coalition with the DA. If those two parties coalesce, someone, I think one of your previous guests indicated that it would be the death of both parties. I predicted that, and we had that discussion in our household. So the ANC will not survive past this coalition with the DA. But let me indicate you what my preference would be, and it would be on the basis of justice for black African people first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
I identify as a colored person, but black people in general in this country, what they suffered under apartheid, we as other races, we cannot explain or put ourselves in their place. The ANC has brought us political power. They brought us some progress in development in our lives.
Yeah.
But with regards to how far black people are still behind, specifically black people, I think in terms of justice, social, economic, and political justice, the ANC must embrace the MK, the EFF, probably the IFP, probably also the PA.
But Khafildin, the MK doesn't want to talk to the ANC at the moment.
But then that's their loss. If they don't want to strengthen their mandate through working with the ANC, then they're missing the boat. With respect to the former president,
all right.
I think he needs to come to the party.
Got that.
But in terms of political, in all the justices for black people, those are the parties that must work together.
Okay, you've been heard, and your point noted about
Thank you,
Prof. Stephen Friedman. Shukran. Thanks for that, Khafildin. Let's get to another one. Brian in Cape Town. Hi, Brian.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good indeed. Right, go ahead. Your point.
I'm great. Look, this is just a Tuesday. I'm not a politician, but when I got to the voting station, over the weekend, and I was obviously there by myself, but something that me and my wife already discussed when we were going to the station as to who we're going to vote for. But just talking about the coalition, I think, this is my 2 cents, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a politician, but my 2 cents or my senses tell me that if the DA, or rather if the ANC would go in coalition with the DA, I think that is where the country will actually take the right direction. I'll tell you why, according to my understanding. With there's so much corruption that is in the ANC, I think with the DA, that is going to be there to look at where do funds go to and how is it used, etc., etc. I think if the DA and the ANC, do a coalition, I think we'll have a very clean government, less corruption. I mean, you look at a case that's now on the news with Mapisa Ngagula. You know, when you look at that lady, you wouldn't think that she would be a corrupt, but it came out that, you know, she was involved in bribes, etc., etc., etc. So I really think that if we get the ANC and the DA in coalition, I think we will have a very good government.
Okay, got that. That's I mean, many people say so, but if not the ideological tie-up, thanks for that, Brian. Then maybe the point from Hafildin, if not an ideological tie-up which causes them to tear up their ANC cards, maybe that government of national unity sounds a lot more appealing now than it may have sounded a few days ago. Here's another one: analysts utter rubbish and nonsense. Hogwash. ANC DA will be the best the country needs. It's a propaganda of Afro pessimists, right? That's another one. Let me just see if I can pick up. I think there's a WhatsApp. In fact, what we're going to do, let's cross now. Okay, there's a couple of more WhatsApps. Maybe here's another. I think now we've done these. Here's one from, I think it's from Watson.
Good evening, Ashraf, and good evening to the from listeners. Ashraf, why are we kind of being held hostage by this narrative of business? And what is the point of us having elections if right now, in terms of us forming a government, we can't form a government because business will react some other way? So what's the point of us having elections if business is ultimately going to decide who they want to be in position of power?
I don't know if business decides. Business can influence party policy. They can do that. Just as you can influence party policy, for example, by saying, I will vote for you as a party if you have these beliefs and this vision. If you have a different vision, as Khafildin said, then you change, for example. So, no, business can influence. They can't actually decide. If they did that, they'd be doing it today. In fact, it was very clear. Listen to the podcast of the conversation I had with the representative from the Business for South Africa. It's very clear. We have a position, but we will step back and let them decide, and then we'll take it from there. Let's get to find out what's happening in KZN after flooding in that region with the SABC reporter in KZN. That's Kalisake Mbenze. Appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. Hi.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Right. So give us an update on what's the position in terms of flooding and relief issues and damages in that region?
No, at the moment the victims are busy mopping up their houses. As you know, that some of them were left with nothing, and their houses were completely destroyed, and they are food and everything. So unfortunately, some of them don't know even where they're going to sleep. They don't have anything. So fortunately today, the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, accompanied by other MECs, also visited these affected families. They promised them that they'll make sure that they provide them with additional assistance, but unfortunately it is not soon because these people are also on the street as we speak. So the situation is very, very, very bad. So they need any kind of help that we may think of.
So do they need more help? I mean, is it coming from from government, from province, from the cities, or do they still need more help than that?
In fact, when they visited these families, the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, and also they are accompanied by the autonomy and police account, they also promised them that they'll come back after they've profiled each and every family member. Unfortunately, it will not be the thing for today because there are many families that are severely affected. But if you look at what the Premier says, when she says they will profile each and every family, which means it can even take them almost a week. So unfortunately, we haven't seen any assistance. But the Premier said they'll provide them with the hot meal. But unfortunately, when we were there, some of the families are complaining that they don't have anything to eat. So that's a situation that I'm facing with.
Okay, well, let's leave it at that. Thank you for your time and giving off just that update as well. And maybe I'll talk to you tomorrow as well, depending on developments in the region. But certainly, I see even in Johannesburg, emergency services on standby in case of real adverse conditions. It's pretty cold right now, but whether cold turns into actual adverse conditions where, property is damaged and lives are at risk is another whole question completely. Right, what drives the national pulse? The elections, absolutely. Salo, hi.
Thank you for having me, Ashraf.
Pleasure. Go ahead.
Ashraf, yes, I would just want to respond to, I think, the active citizen from Polokwane.
Yeah.
Who was just emotional all over. Look, if we talk about people rejecting other parties,
Yeah.
I think here the biggest loser is ANC, and we should mention that. And we
Yes.
should correct people like Active Citizen and others who think that the EFF is the biggest loser, which is not. It did not grow as much as they wanted to.
Yeah, he included the MK as well as saying they also the biggest.
Exactly.
That doesn't make sense to me, but fine. Yeah.
Yes, but the biggest thing that I think he was mentioning, and he is wrong. He mentioned that people don't want migrants here, foreigners. Let me speak about the EFF. I think you
All right,
well know
very
that
quickly,
very quickly. You are aware that they are not saying illegal foreigners must come here and so forth, and then it should be corrected in this way, Ashraf, because if people like Active Citizens just come here emotional with their personal hate of Julius Malema, it is not helping the country. Let's take the facts. It's fine you criticize and so forth, but criticize in a very balanced manner and in a fair way so that we can engage you better.
But the reality is, I'm going to stop you there just because we don't have enough time. But the reality is, you know what? We can't. I can't shape people how they think. People have their own views about so many
you need
things.
To correct.
No. We obviously we've said differently. But if a person is fixated on the fact that 14% in the first election is a defeat, then I really don't understand that. Salo, thanks for that call. Let's get a quick one. Mark, you got literally 30 seconds to make a point. Go ahead, Mark. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. Yeah, so I think what makes this whole talk of coalitions interesting is that the ANC itself is not ideologically very focused, right? They're a very broad church. So we've got on the far left the SSCP element and then moving into a more centralist role. So for them to make coalition talks is also difficult internally because they have to balance their kind of more like centre-right leaning DA side with the more left-wing leaning kind of EFF MK side. So I think this is really also adding to the uncertainty.
I think you're absolutely spot on. Can you just imagine? Let's leave it at that. Thanks for your time, Mark, and to all the rest of the callers. Just imagine if we had no coalition talks, what would we be talking about today and tomorrow and the next day? Yeah. Okay, that's it. That's the show. Okay? And thanks to the entire team that puts it all together. Mark Preller behind the controls together with Tumi and Tebogo, as well as Fusani and Temba Dlamini. All of them and myself making up. Goodness, we like to think we're a winning team. I hope you guys agree with us. This is the National Pulse. Greg Host takes over. It's 6 o'clock.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Sibanye mine workers continue their sit-in and the IEC speaks on objections. Good evening. Some mine workers at Sibanye Stillwater's Kwezi shaft in Rustenburg in the northwest have lamented the employer for failing to pay the employee share ownership scheme for Kroondal employees. This as operations remain halted at 2 shafts of the mine. Over 200 mine workers are staging a sit-in underground. Despite Sibanye Stillwater emphasising that discussions between the company and unions regarding the details of the proposed Kroondal scheme are ongoing, the proposal hasn't yet been implemented because the acquisition of Anglo Platinum's 50% share in the Kroondal transaction